Interesting.
All right. Hello, people. How are you out there? Thinker St. James here, along with Chase Parton. This is the Free for All, and this is the 2025 year in review, everybody. We're coming together. We're going through all of the highs, the lows, the comedy, and the tragedy in the sport of mixed martial arts for the year of 2025. Chase, how the hell are you?
Dude, I am good. It is another week without UFC fights, so we are doing our best, but it is Friday, and of course, we are here to give our recap for the end of the year, especially, specifically on the bigger moments and key points. So I'm just really excited to talk about a lot of these.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that. And, we're going to go through all of these things. I want to, before we even get too deep into it, I do want to give a shout out to Napoleon Bonaparte, who does a fantastic year-end recap video of his own. A lot of the things that we're going to be talking about in this stream are, essentially some of the same topics. Of course, this is the news of the sport, so it's, not proprietary to any one person, of course, but I do want to give Napoleon a shout out because he is a friend of the channel and his video is great. So if you have not seen his year-end review video, I highly recommend watching that, of course, after you hang with your boys right here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like I said, these are just key points from the year. These are not going to be specifically fight related. That's going to be delegated to the Monday show next week, and that's going to be a banger as well. So make sure you're there for that because I'm really excited for that episode. But this one, this list right here, Thinker put together for us, and I was debating if we were going to go chronologically or if we're just going to bounce ideas off. I think I like the just throwing it out and getting Thinker on his toes here a little bit. And some of these we have to talk about them because big things happened in the sport and things are moving forward, and we left a lot of things in the past. So to bookend everything, shout out Thinker for dropping the term here. One, love it. We are just gonna wrap everything up, and I'm just again really really excited. So shout out the chat real quick. Sarah Toby, you're
Absolutely.
early.
Yes. Appreciate you, Sarah Toby, for being here. And of course, everybody in the chat. We are going to be, chatting with you guys as well about all of this stuff. So, you obviously let us know what you think about these stories as we go over them. And new development on the channel. Didn't have a specific announcement about it on the last night stream that I did, but the super chats are working and open now. So, the channel is growing, and that's all thanks to you guys as well. Super chats will be read. So if you throw something in there, super chat wise, we will get it on, and we will shout out and read your comments and comment on that as well. So, appreciate all of the support that way. And yeah, like that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And without further ado, are we ready to go? Does this?
I would say so. I mean, again, I guess the very last point is, as you can see on screen, if you're watching the stream, it's just the two of us. We didn't want to go through and have like links for all, because we're just going to be bouncing around through all these
Yeah.
topics, and it's a lot. So, hopefully this visually will be all right for you guys. But yeah, this is what we're doing. So, either way, just yeah, I mean, fire away, Chase. Why not?
Oh, right. Well, I think obviously we have to start with the easy ones here. Okay,
Sure.
so the this was a big year for us. We had a lot of new prospects, and then we obviously had the old guard leave the sport. And there was a lot of different retirements. So we
Yes.
have to go ahead and run down a couple different ones real quick. first one down on the list, this would not be the first one off the top of my head, of course, but Holly Holm. And then
Yes,
go
Holly
ahead.
Holm retiring. I mean, so like the you say that it wouldn't be first on your list, but when it comes to accomplishments, I mean, I think that there really is something to be said for being the woman who started the downfall of who was the women's goat at the time. I mean, this is the woman who dethroned Ronda Rousey, and obviously Ronda's career ended up going the way that it would go thereafter. But you know, up until that fight with Holly Holm, Ronda was unstoppable. I mean, or at least considered that way. Now we all knew, if you were really paying attention to Ronda's style and what you knew about her, or whatever, you know that there were elements of her game that were somewhat lacking and that needed to be exploited. But really, I mean, the bigger thing with Holly was that Ronda was not able to get to her game plan at all. And that I think is the big credit to her. Like, she really made Ronda look way more human, obviously beating her. It's a major accomplishment. So everything that happened with Holly thereafter, I think is, it's going to be what it's going to be. Holly also not necessarily goated status, but she will always have the place in history of being the woman who dethroned Ronda.
Okay, so would you say she's the Chris Weidman of women's MMA?
And in a certain respect, I do think that there is something to be said for that comparison. Yeah, I would say so. I think that there's definitely something there.
Okay, well, I will say, I didn't have much, when I started watching the sport religiously, I did not get a Holly Holm experience that would make me say, let's, send her off in the flowers. I know she is, beat Ronda, great, head kick, crazy. I saw her get what subbed by Kayla Harrison, like,
Sure did.
okay, well, shout out her good retirement. Listen,
I mean, yeah, and it's like these are like you'll hear some of the other names. I think they'll probably be a little bit more appropriate to mention. But I mean, I like I said, I think that there's two different versions of like memorability in the sport. It's
Mhm,
like what you did as far as like all of your own accomplishments, and then it's like milestones as well. And
yeah.
I'd say Holly falls more into the milestone
Okay.
category.
Okay. So, we'll go to another name that's not on your list. So I'm going to throw it out at you because you can't even be bothered to add the female goat literally. And I have to remind you because this is Lauren Murphy, everybody out
Oh,
here. Come on. How could anybody forget? She came out here and had a winning third round in 2025. You don't understand. I was writing her off from the moment she stepped in that cage. And I'm genuinely a fan. She almost subbed her too, guys. You got to remember, she put the pressure on Moira, lost the first two rounds, came back and won the third round, almost finished her. So, retirement, holla, let's
it's
go.
true. That's an oversight on my part to not give the proper praise to my queen Lauren Murphy, who she definitely a woman who like came in. Lauren Murphy had the right idea. You know what I mean? She came in at a time like a lot of these women early on, where this was not exactly a glamorous thing for a woman to be doing, and came in with the express intent to try to be the best. Was not that, but still had that as the goal and worked towards that as much as she could throughout her entire run. Ultimate Fighter to the end of the line, and like you said, getting a round over a prospect, if you want to call her that, still an accomplishment. I will always have respect for Lauren Murphy. I like her.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a good one. She could always hang her hat on that she competed against the women's, the second women's go, whatever you want to say, Valentina Shevchenko. I think she went to decision with her too. So
Is it, yeah, if that's the case, I don't remember exactly, but that's yeah. I mean, again, when you're in that pioneer sort of category, like this is why like Gina Carano will always be remembered, like as one of the most important women in the sport. It's like she was not necessarily the best, but you're doing it way before what the sport is now. And I mean, Lauren Murphy somewhere similar, I would say, to a lesser extent. I mean, maybe not exactly one to one, apples to apples, but all of these women who were competing early, I think, do deserve a lot of respect in that regard.
fair, fair. I think there's one more that I think you have forgotten, and this one's easy because she got a retirement video in 2025. So this is the Karate Hottie, everybody. What's the word on
True.
this?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking women too, it's Karate Hottie, and then Carla Esparza, I believe, was this year
That is the
too.
other one, yes, but
Yeah,
I feel like did
was she
she?
last year? Maybe she went in
No,
very
but I
end of
don't feel
last
like
year.
did she compete, like, recently ever? Like, or did
Yeah,
they?
yeah, she had her last fight. She also got a video package. That's how I know.
Yeah, maybe she did compete. Okay, yeah, you're right, because she walked out and like, whatever. Okay, continue. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but either way, Karate Hottie, yeah, she might have been last year actually. Karate. I'm trying to remember all. It's hard, now we're going back to like
Yeah.
January. It's like hard to remember all of the exact timelines of these things. Karate Hottie, I think, fine. I'm glad that she landed where she did. She's on the desk now. She seems pretty happy doing analysis and all of that. Not again, these are it's like how do you rate all of these careers, right? It's like they're not necessarily like the highest of the high, but like, what? Oh,
They got a video package, buddy. How do
well,
you rate their careers?
we
These guys are fucking goats compared to those bums over there. Like, what the
It's
hell?
true. We did, and we had a lot to say about it when it happened.
True.
But yeah, with Karate Hottie, I mean, I always liked her. I got it really holds a special place in my heart personally. That was the first time that I ever went to see the UFC live was Karate Hottie versus Joanna, and that was an amazing event for me. I mean, being able to see that up close, and I mean, I've told the story a couple of times already, so I won't rehash all the details. But being on the floor for that and being able to be essentially cage side for that main event was like otherworldly. So
Mhm.
really, yeah. So yeah, shout out to Karate Hottie. Nothing wrong with that.
Hell yeah. And then the other two that are on your list, I'm saving them for last because
Sure.
those are the most important ones. But one just happened more recently that was a little overlooked too. This is the second, potentially third retirement of Henry Cejudo. So
Oh yes, Henry. Gosh, didn't even yeah, didn't have Henry on the on
why would
should have.
you? I mean, he's
Well,
retired like four times, you know?
Definitely that, and also that I mean, I feel like we're talking about all of like the people who's like these milestone careers or like the different navigations. I think Henry overshadowed his own greatness with the retirement, the initial retirement. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he was playing this dangerous game of trying to know your worth or whatever. Like I'm going to go out, I'm going to hold out for what I deserve, blah blah blah, this and that. That backfired spectacularly, and then he comes back and has this less than stellar run on the other side of it. It's unfortunate because really, aside from all of the outside of the cage stuff that comes with Henry was a ridiculously good fighter, and Triple C. There's a reason for that name. You know what I mean? Like it Henry is an unfortunate case of getting in your own way, like when it comes to how he navigates like as a person, his personality overshadows sadly some of the greatest accomplishments in the sport. So, I mean, shout out to Henry for all that he accomplished for real. It's unfortunate that you end up where you're at with like the way that you kind of present yourself.
Yeah, 100%. So, those ones obviously the lesser of the ones on this year that I would say we would talk about, but clearly we have to talk about the bigger ones here. Dustin the Diamond Poirier. He is no longer in the UFC, technically still under contract. Keep that in mind, everybody. So, he may have retired, but he may not be done fighting. I'll tell you that.
True. Yes. Well, Dustin, obviously, long credentialed career, some amazing banger performances and fights. Uh, Sadly, one of those guys who I often talk about the echelons of the sport and where you put people and stuff. One of those guys that was just always right there, like right on the cusp. I mean, interim champion, but never held undisputed. And it kind of is one of those ones that hurts, because it's like you do think that like a guy like that should be a champion, but you can't deny the facts.
You know what's crazy though is so when I say people like, Dan Ige, he's as good as you get before you get great. Dustin Poirier is great. No denying. Like he's great. He's got greatness written all over him. He's beaten some of the greatest. The actual belt holding, being champ, that's a lot of politics, to be honest, and I think Dustin didn't really have the star power to ever be, like, a true, like, he couldn't be a Connor kinda deal or an Islam or an Ilya, so I think he fit right into where he should've, like, he stayed around, he didn't flare out like a lot of the other people who don't have like the major star power. And he was able to, again, to beat some of the greater people in a very stacked division, two divisions really, if you want to go to 45 and then 55 or whatever. But Dustin's one of my favorites. I remember I had some friends back in the day who were very confident that Dustin would beat Connor in the rematch. And I was like, "Are you guys fucking kidding me? Come on!" Like Conor McGregor, what do I know? I'm a kid who just watched the highlights. I've seen Conor knock people out, and then Dustin whoops him. So it's just crazy. Dustin is, whether you want to classify the interim belt as actually reaching greatness or holding the belt, it doesn't really matter. He's one of the greatest of the divisions that he competed in. So that's really all that matters.
Yeah, no, like I don't think that like I mean I think that you can be great without holding the belt. You know what I mean? I do think that that is like a thing personally. I think that that's a status, and I think Dustin definitely achieved that. Yeah, that's I think kind of like a personal kind of opinion about that element of it. I just think it's unfortunate for him specifically, having been in the sport so long and doing as much as he did like for the sport, really. Because I mean, in a lot of ways, like when you span generations like he did, like being around as long as he was and actively at a high level as long as he was, it's just unfortunate that he didn't get to achieve that. Like I think he kind of deserved it in a way, even if he didn't achieve it.
The craziest thing about what you're saying is, so he spanned generations, eras, whatever you want to say. Like I said, he is great. He's one of the greatest.
Right.
And it is specifically being a boxer. Like he's never somebody who's, he's got jujitsu. He shows it, of course. But when it comes to wrestling and grappling, I mean, it's not his first instinct. He loves to box, clearly. And he's one of the best boxers that the UFC has ever seen. And it should show that because he's able to withstand the different changes of guard in the eras, and it's strictly off of one main skill set. He's never really had to adapt his game to others like that of when Islam came around. He was striking with him. He wasn't.
Sure.
He didn't say, "All right, I gotta wrestle with him." I gotta shoot, and I gotta show him that my jujitsu's. But no, it was always in the back pocket for Dustin. He always led the fight with his hands, and he was always a dog. A lot of people, and there are some people in the Discord, not going to name them because it's really funny that they are kind of the last 10 seconds of Dustin Poirier's career was him shooting to clinch with Max Holloway. That's the unfortunate part of the reality. But the other 10 years and 50 seconds, they were a hell of a career. So I don't care what anybody says,
And
man.
real, I mean, look, at that point, that shows you that this is the time to retire. I think that like I think that it's exactly fine. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, if he had gone, like, yeah, of course you'd like, it would have been nice to like be like, yeah, oh man went out with the fireworks that he always had. But it's like, there's a reason that he's at retirement stage.
Yeah.
But also, I did want to at least offer the caveat that it is funny about talking about how, boxing first, when this is the man who coined, don't be silly, jump the gilly.
True, you are right there. But, speaking of boxing first, let's talk about the last person on the list who decided to do what, I mean, you say boxing first, he went boxing last, brother. And he did that after a UFC career. That is the man, the myth, Tony Ferguson, baby. And he is no longer a UFC tenured athlete, but guess what? That don't stop. It's Tony time, baby. It's boxing. Whatever DAZN has got to offer or Misfits, he'll take it. So I love to see the new arc that he's got going. 2-0, undefeated. And listen, what can you say, guys? Going into the new year, undefeated.
I know you were referencing the zone there, but I do like the idea that Tony is literally just fighting in a days in.
Yes.
No, yeah, look, dude, what we had, I really, I think that the when we talked about Tony boxing on an earlier episode of the free for all, and I think that I summed it up really perfectly in the post UFC era of Tony. If you are a Tony fan, then you just are happy that he's getting wins at all. Because really, what the sad part is when we talk about, bringing it back to the UFC, you cannot deny that there are two distinct eras of Tony Ferguson when it comes to the UFC. There was the nightmare Tony that everyone was like, man, this guy is one of the most creative strikers, creative athletes in general that the sport has known, and then a clear and definitive second half where it was the worst losing streak that we have ever seen in the sport, that almost is in a weird way kind of like a roundabout like backhandedness by the organization to even let it go on for as long as they did. Now I understand why they did, and I don't think that it's wrong that they I mean, Tony is a fan favorite, and you respect that. So I get all of that part of it, but like I really don't think that we're going to see, at least for a while, another version of this where you had a guy that was like as revered as Tony, and then the losing streak on the other side of it. So it kind of occupies somewhat of a unique position.
Well, they always say history repeats itself, and Tony's his arc was very reminiscent of what BJ Penn had went through. He was very dominant leading up, and then immediately just hit a wall. Like I don't even I like the record that they 0-6, 0-7, whatever it was. Like it's crazy. The crazy after the downfall. But listen, Tony's a fucking legend. Anybody who watches mixed martial art, like that's the thing. We go back to there's fighters, there's mixed martial artists. Tony is the Venn diagram. He's in the middle there. He does have that fighter will, but like at heart, he's got like that Bruce Lee mindset. He wants to be water. He's
True.
kind of just he's in he lives mixed martial arts. He's one of these eccentric personalities. Like, Yuri and Tony, there's some similarities between they live martial arts, they live a specific way, and it's not the common man. They do things differently because they're involved with martial arts, and
Well,
that's just what they do with it.
that definitely that, and also it goes again. Another point that we had made previously talking about him is its authenticity that I think goes a long way. It's like you talk about them being different as martial artists. They're also just different as people,
Mhm.
and that like that goes a long way with the fans. Like I am never one of those people that like I don't mind if you put on a little bit to sell fights, or if there's a different person that you are at home versus how you are in public. All those things don't really matter all that much to me. Really, I care most about how you fight. But like, there is definitely a distinct and noticeable difference between people who are, one way, and another way, versus the guy who just goes in and is himself at all times. And Tony is always that. I mean, you will never get Tony Ferguson not being Tony Ferguson.
Well, and that's the difference. You have the people who will wear the sunglasses in the press conferences so we can't see how nervous they are. And then you have Tony Ferguson who wears sunglasses every single day of his life, and he has a cane that he walks around and props up. There's levels to this game. There's cool, and then there's Tony Ferguson. So shout out to him for having an illustrious UFC career. I'm excited to see what he's going to do in this boxing shit. I genuinely think, and now I know the last guy that Tony beat was like a decent boxer. He beat him, and he beat the life out of him for a good amount of time. Whatever you want to say, but like I think it's possible that Misfits will like make some sort of way that he can just continue to win. If he goes 50-0 in boxing, he just fucking beats Floyd's record. I wouldn't even fucking care. Who even knows? Like that would just be hilarious, and like it would be such a Tony thing to have happen. I wouldn't even care. The destiny of Tony Ferguson is beyond me as of right now. What I saw from him in the UFC is not what I saw from him in boxing. What I see in boxing is a cold blooded killer, and this dude's gonna go to the top. So he's already a champ and an interim champ or whatever he took on the last one. I don't know.
Well, yeah. So I was to say, I mean, you're talking about like Misfits, like setting him up to be that. Shout out to 46 Vet hanging out with us. Appreciate you, bro. Like,
Facts.
being an influencer. Yeah. I mean, this last go we were talking a little bit about that, the guy that he had fought, the Spencer dude. Don't know too much about like his influencer versus fighting credentials, but to your point about saying like, can they like set him up for that? If they've got a whole slew of other influencers coming in, then they sure can set him up for that. And again, like this is why these other organizations being around and there for fighters to go to and continue on after the UFC is perfectly fine by me, because there's a reason that people like these guys. There's a reason people want to continue on supporting these fighters. If they are like, because Tony is one of those people who is never going to stop fighting. Like he will fight until his body physically will not allow him to be in there. And like,
And
if they
even then, they'll have to stop him. Like
they're
we
gonna have to
won't.
pry
Yeah.
him out. Yeah, it's very true. So it's like, that all being said, like there are places that they can do that. There are places they can still win. I think that there is a great value to that, and I'm happy for Tony in the big picture with that.
Yeah, 100%. We've talked about it before. We won't drag it on too long, of course, but celebrity boxing has its place, you know.
Sure,
And and I think this segues perfect into the next topic here. You know, celebrity boxing has its place, but the thing that does not have its place, and the thing that that Dana White and TKO are putting a lot of stock in, is this Zuffa. Is that how you say it? Zuffa boxing, Zuffa
Zuffa,
boxing.
yeah, Zuffa, sure,
Yeah, so Zuffa boxing is now a thing, and they did put on a Canelo and Crawford card earlier this year. So if there's any closing moments that anybody in the chat would like to have, actually, before we get into it, there's a lot of people going crazy in the chat right now.
sure.
So 46 vet, of course, Meat Rock, Meat Rock, Sierra
Yeah,
West
Meat
Coast, of
Rocket,
course,
love that guy.
Meat Rocket. I can't even read. LOL 69. Yes, so Zuffa boxing. If anybody has anything that they would like to say in the chat, please say it now, because I don't think there's going to be much that I have to say. So I'll read it off. But Thinker, go ahead. Zuffa boxing, Canelo Crawford.
Yeah, so, I mean, really the big thing about this boxing endeavor, I would say, is that it's a fulfillment of Dana White's lifelong desire to be in the boxing world. This guy has always wanted to be in boxing. There is evidence of this from years and years and years ago. This is a little known fact. There actually was a very short-lived kind of similar to The Ultimate Fighter boxing version of that. It was a very brief run of it, but like they tried to do like a boxing version of the Ultimate Fighter early on in the UFC's run. And it just failed spectacularly. But the point is that Dana has always had ambitions to be in boxing. Finally, he has the resources, he has the team around, whatever, all of these things, gets into boxing, and then now comes to realize like what that world is, like what that actually entails. And I don't know if he really likes it all that much. Like, there was that image of him sitting next to Turkey Al Sheikh at the Canelo Crawford fight, and he's just like looking like, like
Mhm.
staring. And it's just like, I mean, him getting grilled at the press conference, I thought was a great moment for that, because it really was the boxing world saying, hey, buddy, you're trying to come into our turf here. We're not just going to allow you in the same way that MMA allowed you in. I mean, you did what you did in MMA, and that's great. Boxing is a different beast. You got us to deal with when you come into our world. And now I think Dana's finally realizing that to an extent.
What I think is unfortunate when I think of Zuffa boxing, and I talk about this when I think of like the PFL, and I think of like AEW when it comes to pro wrestling, of course, with Tony Khan out there. When it comes to passion projects, people they will they won't accept defeat when it's something that they really really love. And in the way that you said it at the beginning, this is something that Dana's always wanted to do. He's always wanted to be in the boxing world. I feel like, I mean, obviously Canelo and Crawford are making fucking, so much fucking money for, Netflix and TKO and wherever this is at for Zuffa boxing. But if it may or may not be the most prestigious and or crazy, like, I feel like it might be eating the money out of Dana's pocket. Of course, he makes too much fucking money for it to matter, but even if it's like a failing project, it's his passion, and he'll probably just tank with it. He's going to try to make it work no matter what it is. And that's, boxing, in my opinion, again, going back to the celebrity boxing, I think it's just that has a place. Professional boxing, when it comes to the competitiveness, like Canelo and Crawford, it's just personally not for me. And if that's what Dana wants to do, that's cool. But personally, I think he's going to be riding the ship down to its till it sinks.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, there's also the issues of the Ali Act getting altered and all of that kind of stuff, and how that affects things, of course. We're gonna have to see what ends up actually coming down legally with all of that. The way that they want to do like a feeder system, with like basically like using Zuffa boxing as like a way to prop up new stars, like take prospects and like build them and stuff like that. It all remains to be seen if that's going to be viable in the boxing landscape. But it does. It is a nice, it's nice to see for a guy who has done as much in this world as Dana has. I mean, I often have a lot of criticisms of his business practices, all of that. You cannot deny the accomplishments of the man. So it is nice if this is something that he's wanted for that long, for him to accomplish that. I just don't. I think that this is one of those cases of like, be careful what you wish for. It's almost like a monkey's paw kind of thing. Like you go so deep into it, or put all of your passion into it, and then you find out what it actually is when you're in it, and maybe it's not as green the grass that you were thinking it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm personally not the I keep up with TKO when it comes to their pro wrestling and when it comes to their mixed martial arts endeavors. But if Zuffa boxing is on the portfolio, it's something that I'm going to stay far away from because boxing is not something that intrigues me, especially when it comes to the competitiveness of the professionals compared to how much they are getting paid. It just it's not worth my attention span. I mean, there's plenty of other regional affairs out there that I could, I could watch a replay of and get the enjoyment factor and get the content out there that people they may not even want to watch it. I don't care, but I would care to watch that more than I would Zuffa boxing prelims or or boxing in general unless it's celebrity bare knuckle or dirty. That's just the way that and I actually listen, it kind of rolls off the tongue too fucking well for it not to be the truest statement ever. If it's professional boxing and not celebrity, bare knuckle, and or dirty, I don't want it. I don't know. That's just
Yeah.
my opinion.
Oh, I'm in the exact same camp. I've said from the very beginning that like Dana can try to make the boxing thing happen, and I guess if there's an audience for it, then congratulations. The same way that I feel about Power Slap, it's like if there's an audience for it and they want it, and there are people that are willing to do it, by all means, have your fun. Not for me. It will definitely not be something I would be paying attention to in the slightest. And to his credit on that one as well, giving Dana some props on this too. He has always said, I do want to keep those worlds separate. I don't want the MMA fighters coming over to boxing because there's Zuffa boxing necessarily. Like, they have distinct and separate worlds that they occupy. I'm glad about that because I don't want the crossover because I don't want the boxing.
Yeah,
Like, you can keep it.
yeah, but the problem is that's what Dana says. But when his top dollar people like Ilya, like Tom Aspinall, who insistently say that they're going to go box,
True.
they're going to have to be the ones that keep them in the pool of UFC. They're not going to just, Connor's a once in a million type of deal, deal, whatever you want to say, how many deals are there. But, not everybody can just leave and go do their own thing and just come back to the UFC and have an illustrious career. Francis was he gets dropped because he wants to do all these crazy endeavors and make a bunch of money doing not fucking professional mixed martial arts. So it was rightful for the UFC to drop him for that aspect. But if they continue to try to let people walk for that reason, Ilya and Dustin Poirier is probably an option, of course. I mean, he's already retired, but people like that who are strictly the boxers of mixed martial arts. Why wouldn't they go to Zuffa boxing if they're making fucking millions and they can still be in the UFC? And obviously Dana's saying he's keeping them separate, but if they're gonna go somewhere else, you're gonna want to keep them around. But Dana, he's keen on letting people walk, I guess. So we'll see how it goes.
He's also keen on changing his mind as soon,
Yeah,
depending on,
I guess this
so I
goes
get that
either
too.
way.
Yeah, so we'll see. But really, I mean, what he's going to find for people like us, and again, not even just people like us, but what I was saying about the boxing world, I do think that one of the biggest things that came out of the Canelo Crawford affair was him getting grilled at that press conference and the way that he handled it. This guy who was a boxing journalist came in with legitimate questions for him. He was not equipped to handle them, had to deflect. Oh, just interview me. We'll do an interview. Obviously, that was never going to happen. It showed that you cannot just roll up into a turf that you're not familiar with and think that you're just going to set up shop. These are established. This is an established landscape that you do not have a place in. So you have to work your way into that. And for you to just drop in out of the sky, taking the two of the largest boxing names in the world and dropping the card on us like that, like, it doesn't just automatically grant you access to something that is a long and tenured tradition in its own sport. So, we'll see how he ends up being able to navigate all of those elements of it. I just think it's very interesting to see, somebody get what they've wanted for so long and how that looks on the other side.
We're gonna just have to see how he handles it over the time. Dana. I mean, I'm a big fan of Dana, and he's handled his shit with the UFC, and I'm a big fan of what he's created for me as a fan. Um, if he makes me a fan of boxing, I will say anything is possible. I mean, they could get us to Mars if that's possible, but up until it's true, I'm gonna be skeptical. That's for most things. That's for most things about how I am. So it's unfortunate, but that's just the case for what it is gonna be with Zuffa boxing. And I think that's a great segue into this next one. If you have anything else left,
No, all I got to do is shout out to Davos checking in with us, and of course, again, Meat Rocket. Appreciate you, brother.
he's the thinker.
Well, I mean, the doppelgangers abound. Apparently,
So
what happened to the Kurdistani Yama show? I gotta check in with that guy.
So, that's God, I that fucking shit. You're hilarious. You're hilarious. Anyway, so Zuffa boxing and the potential that it has and what Dana wants it to be. These are great segues to talk about this next promotion that we almost got to see a visual of. Me personally was very skeptical it was even a real thing, considering the trailers for this promotion. GFL, if anybody was wondering. This all started out with promotional videos of AI UFC veterans and PFL people ready to come out of retirement and join this new promotion called the fucking what the hell was GFL even stand for? I don't even remember.
Global Fight League, I
That
believe.
is right. And this was a new promotion that was going to be benefiting the fighters. This was going to be in service of the fighters. This was going to get rid of those big corporations who run everything and take every dollar off the top and don't give it back to, any of the retirement funds of the fighters or any other thing that they don't fucking get. I don't know. But the GFL had big plans and, the whole year really again talking about a bookend. I mean, we started out with the GFL being announced, then we got a trailer, then we got told that they were never fucking coming, that we're just not having it, we don't have an event and we're not coming back. Then we get people saying that they weren't even, we weren't even going to fight, we just took their money and just like dipped out on them, like
I mean, if that, you got people who were not actually even signed in the first place getting
that is
announced as being
true.
signed. I mean,
Yeah.
this was the GFL. It it's a crazy story in the big picture, really, if you think about it. Like all like the fact that it was going to be this yet another organization with this convoluted system of teams and teams going at each other and regions and this and that. They had that draft stream. That was where, of course, that AI video was premiered. With all of these like Paige Van Zant and Tony Ferguson was on there too. A couple of names that we've talked about.
Sage Northcutt.
Sage Northcutt. I mean, this whole like experiment was very interesting. I think it unfortunately overshadows the good things that what you were describing just before, where it's like at its core, an organization like the GFL could do for fighters something that is not often done right now, which is offer them, representation, offer them post-career support, offer them insurance that they don't necessarily get elsewhere. There were elements of it that I think had a lot of value. It was all cloaked in a whole mess of ridiculous bullshit that just ended up to the point where they weren't able to even get off the ground. And one of the funniest parts about it, I don't think that we ever ended up getting to this point because it came out a little bit later on down the line, as information was cropping up after the aftermath of everything. But apparently, a lot of fighters, the way that they were enticed to join, quote unquote, join this thing, like be a part of it or whatever, was that the organizer of the GFL would show them a screenshot of his bank account having like $40 million in it or whatever. And apparently that money was just in there for the screenshot and then was just off wherever the fuck that money ended up going. So it's like this whole thing was just such a wild story if you really break down all of the details of it. Like it sucks because it could have been something good for the fighters, I think is what really makes me sad about it. But if you take that aspect away, it's just a wild tale.
Yeah, no, that one, the GFL, man, it's unfortunate because we get promotions and, we get promotions like Karate Combat. And the Karate Combat is the perfect example because they are a promotion that don't know what the fuck they're doing, but they went for it and they're failing as they go, but they're still able to keep keeping the wheel going for as long as it comes. It's slowly coming to a stop as we see, they go January, February, March. well, we can't go April, can't go. We almost had one in May, didn't get. I think we actually did get May, but then June, July, August, September, then we get one October, and then who even knows when the next Karate Combat is now because the people aren't even getting paid over there. Which I told you guys, they're getting paid in crypto. Like this is not a new thing. There have been people again. This goes back to the GFL, and this goes back. People think they know everything. They know the next big thing. There were NFL players were electing to get their paychecks in Bitcoin, at a time. I'm sure there were karate combat people out there that said, "No, pay me in your karate coin, and I'm good to go." And we know it's worthless, so they're worth nothing as a karate combat athlete under whatever circumstances that they're contracted there. It's pretty crazy. So
Well, just little shameless plug, a whole video on the channel currently right
yes.
now about karate combat and everything that Chase is talking about. So if you're not familiar with all of the things that are being discussed with karate combat, watch the video and it'll catch you up on that. Yeah, but your point is definitely correct. Like people thinking that they like really, I think that it's a broader point that also is correct with the same thing. People thinking that they know the next big thing. It's not just the crypto aspect, it's the GFL in general.
Mhm.
This whole idea that like, okay, we have an idea of like the next version of this go forward with the sport that's going to be revolutionary and we're going to change the landscape of things. And it's like, you don't, even if you have the resources for it, which we're seeing with PFL. I mean, PFL has a massive amount of backing, not exactly changing the landscape of things. Like there is so much that like goes into making a successful fight organization that I just don't think that these people, even with a large amount of support, realize when they're trying to endeavor with this kind of stuff. Like it's way more intricate and involved than they're giving it credit for, and just thinking that they can throw money at it and it'll just automatically be a success. Definitely not the way.
I just am am fascinated by the idea that there was a phone call or an email set up and they said, "Meet me here, we're gonna have a meeting." And a guy walks in and he shows him a picture on his phone and he goes,
Yeah.
You
Oh,
see that, right? That's
look, I
$40 million.
said, look at all of those zeros.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
absolutely
that's
legitimately the case. And people buy. I mean, like that, it's a crazy thing too with that because like it always like kind of boggles my mind when like you have, let's say you have a product, it's a new product or something, and they get a celebrity endorsement, and how far a celebrity endorsement goes when it's like this person, just because this guy is an actor in a film, why does he know what the best brand of shampoo is or something like that? You know what I mean? Like, but people respond. So the same way of what you're saying with the guy showing a screenshot, it's like you see all of those dollar signs, it's like, well, obviously he's got some, he must know, I mean, but it's just, it's perception becomes reality, but then reality bites back.
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely insane. GFL, a short-lived idea. It is safe to say that it is done and dead. I mean, I don't think we're ever gonna see a GFL mention ever again, in my opinion. Like, they
It
got to sweep this under the rug at this point. And if we do see something, it'll be something similar but rebranded. Like they can't go with GFL at this point because we all know how major flopped it was. Like
You're right. No, absolutely. I mean, and the fact that the guy, like the main dude, was saying that he still wanted to try to get it off the ground, they were going to rework it and all of that. I mean, the perception is certainly, ingrained in our memory now of everything, and the amount of fighters that this is another thing that with that too, and something that all organizations need to realize. Karate Combat comes into play with this as well. Is that when you are not acting like, even if you have some unscrupulous business practices, which it seems like a lot of organizations do, whether they want to or not, if like it catches up with you, it will always catch up with you. And when you're just starting out, like there is no way that you are going to be able to escape the massive amount of people that you're bringing into the fold. You've got all of these fighters, some who are not actually even contracted to your organization, that you're bringing in. That's all a mouth with a platform that will be right on the other side to say this is bullshit when everything inevitably collapses. So like to try to like organize something like this and think that the word of mouth is not going to get out even if you like try to keep it under wraps is really short-sighted.
I want to say you told a short story about one of the executives or whatever at the GFL. There was some shady guy that worked at the GFL in the front office that you told a story about. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the fact that the GFL fell through, he might have been the guy holding the phone with the screenshot, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah, it certainly could have been. Yes, yeah, that was a story of when he was working in a different industry and essentially brought a bunch of people to an office that was being rented that had like all of this like extravagant stuff that was like meant specifically to like present wealth, and it was just all a house of cards. It was just a bunch of rented shit.
yeah. Yeah, so, that's how that goes, that is the real world, everybody. That should just show you that money doesn't exist, and the people out there who have a lot of things, it is just on a screenshot that they then send to another person to screenshot and then, show another guy and then get them to sign a contract, and then now they own them for 6 professional bouts, that's just how it goes. Or in Francis's case, you just request things from them, like a plane to France, or this is how you win back on your end of the contract. Is you just get mansions and planes and private jets. Sage Northcutt was probably in just a fucking model home or something for his fucking video for the GFL draft. Like, it's pretty crazy now that you remind me that we did witness a draft. And I remember when the thing started, I was watching it and saying, this is like pre-recorded or something. Like, this is like the it's AI or pre-recorded. Something's going on. And it was weird. And yeah, so I don't doubt that the GFL is gonna come back under a different name, but nobody's gonna ever believe that the global fight league means anything because of all the things that we just listed, of course.
Absolutely. And now it becomes a very fascinating, bizarre footnote in MMA history that we got to live through in the span of a year, basically. So, n- really, I think what the bigger point for all of that is that your boys were here from the day one to the execution date. We were, because this is before we even were doing the free for all. We were talking about this on last week's fights. Like, we were keeping up with this GFL every step of the way. So, again, it's something just kind of a footnote in history now, but who was here? We were here.
Absolutely. And so, to go ahead and end the GFL talk, I think, speaking of the things that we were here for that are interesting things to note in the span of the UFC, of course, Dana White was added to the board of Meta is on this list to talk about. Now, this is interesting because, one, Dana is a billionaire. Meta, the Meta corporations, whatever the fuck they're called, the metaverse thingy-mabobbers, they're also a billion-dollar corporation. Um, Money isn't real. Billions of dollars couldn't even fit in like the United States anymore. Like, this is too much money to even fathom. And billionaires getting together with other billionaires to form, conglomerates together. I don't even know what's going to happen. This, what has Dana White offered to the Meta other than just being another billionaire? Like, he's no different than another guy that sits in the chair right across from him that has $87 billion to give another corporation that is also bald. So I don't know what this move does for me personally, but it is something to note. Like, Dana White is an important person in, like, I'm going to say this in a way, American politics, to say, because when it comes to these big corporations, the big people that run these corporations, they are the big, they're the world, the powerful leaders in America. I always think back to Vince McMahon, the WWE. His wife Linda McMahon is in Donald Trump's cabinet. Isn't that weird to think about? And it should just, all these powerful people, they all have a connection some way, somehow. So Dana being in Meta now, associated with Meta, it should just show you that he's in the upper echelon. Like, you have your rich people, you have your wealthy, and then you have your lizard people. That's where Dana's like reaching to now. So
Yeah, most definitely. I think that you nailed most of the major points just with that intro of it. First of all, I wanted to give another quick shout out to the chat. Tattletale Strangler, good to see you, brother. Good to see you again. And Didgery Dave checking in. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for everybody who's hanging out with us. But yes, as far as this Meta thing, yeah, you're right. I mean, Dana was added to the board of Meta very early on in pretty much right after the election. And a lot of people were speculating that this was big tech cozying up to the administration via Dana as a proxy. I think that there's something definitely to that. Now, of course, the metaverse element of things, that's something that ends up kind of collapsing. So, I mean, where that portion of it comes into play, I don't know if there was any direct connection there, but like the whole idea of Dana being like part of these greater organizations that are outside of the sports world does speak to what you're talking about, where it's like, there are powerful people and then there's like one step above that. And like, it's these people, which is so hilarious to me. And I really don't want to get super political with any of this, but like the same people who rail about the global elites and this kind of stuff are basically that, you know what I mean? Like the same people like that would espouse like, oh, we have to stand up to power. You are the power. Like you are
yeah.
the power that now has to be fought. But Dana being part of that is very interesting, and how that ends up playing into the UFC and MMA. I mean, we are going to have fights at the White House coming up in this coming year. I mean, these things could not have happened without this power structure as we see it, and Dana being part of the Meta board plays right into that too.
And Didgery Dave, when I say lizard people, I want you to understand that I mean the people who control humans. These are the people who act like humans. These are the people in power that want you to believe that they have the interest of humans. They don't. They are out here controlling you because they are the lizard people and they control everything behind you. The Illuminati is real. Dana White potentially could be part of them now. But, the metaverse is where we all live now. So if Dana's the leader of it, I mean, fuck it, I don't even know anymore. But you actually skipped to a point though. The thing that solidifies the point, before we even got to it, is the White House card was announced earlier this year. Of course, that was another point on this list, and it is absolutely, you cannot deny the fact that this was something being interworked for a really long time. It's not like, I mean, yes, Donald Trump can snap his fingers and Dana White fucking does his fucking bidding or whatever, but this has been coming for a while. It probably was coming before he was added to the board of Meta, and they were working some ideas of how we're going to get some big global viewership at the White House with some new technology, whatever the case may be. I mean, when it all comes together, you're going to be like, oh, it all started when Dana was added to the board of Meta, and then it all wraps around to, you got your people in power, and then the people in the power are the political figures, and then yada yada yada, and Kevin O'Leary from fucking Shark Tank comes out. It all has a message. But whatever you want to say is, or whatever there is to be said, Dana is a political powerful figure at this point in our lifetime. At one point he was that entrepreneurial figure who you could look up to, and you could aspire to be him. But now he's at the point where he can do whatever he wants with his money. He can start a boxing league. He can start a slap promotion league. He can go put on fights at the White House if the president wants it. There's just no question to what is limiting Dana White and where he's going to go with whatever passion project he has next. I'm just Who knows? But him being added to the board of Meta for this year, 2025, it should note that was the beginning of all of this kind of crazy, extraordinary plans that he has. If he tries to go build a fucking city, the UFC city, I would not be surprised at this point.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and to your point about like, this all being like in the works, what I will say about like the Dana White presidential connection, um, I do have a modicum of respect for it because like, Trump was very instrumental in making the UFC a success. I mean, the whole going back years. We talked about this on the review of Warrior. Remember when we were saying about like things happening? You saw the Trump buildings in the background in Atlantic City. The UFC needed venues for their events back in the day. Trump was there to offer that, formed a bond, and now the two of them rose up together. I mean, like, there's something to be said for that, and I do think that they're very similar in the sense that they both, Trump and Dana, reward loyalty. That is really above all else with those guys. I would say is that, loyalty is first and foremost, regardless of almost anything else. So the two of them keeping together in that regard, I think is pretty fine. And it's kind of a logical next step. And yeah, I mean, now you see what the end result of that is this more powerful element that Dana has now found himself in. Although the last point that I do have about the meta aspect specifically, this is an underappreciated video on the channel, but go back into the Yama video archives. I did a video right when Dana got announced as a board member, and all of the censorship that Meta ended up doing of their own people, because a lot of people had criticisms of Dana White getting added to the board, and internally the organization Meta was not having that, and there was a whole big behind the scenes thing with that too. So similar to how the government, or how Dana might say one thing about free speech and then not necessarily live up to that. Meta, by extension, did something very similar to what Dana does, where it's like, yeah, you have free speech in the UFC, except if you ask the wrong questions.
Yeah.
Meta kind of doing the same thing. So a little bit of an odd parallel there.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of an odd parallel, some may say this is one, but going into our next topic, I mean, it's still similar to what we were talking about. We have the White House, we have Donald Trump, we have Dana White.
Yes.
So Conor McGregor, John Jones, and others were at Trump's inauguration. This is another big thing that happened during the year. Connor, obviously, we have more things to talk about with him here in a few, but Connor was, all over the place. John Jones celebrating with his boy Donnie, and I forget actually who else was there. But
The Paul brothers.
so anybody and everybody. Vince McMahon was probably there as well. By the way, I brought him up earlier, but if his wife was there celebrating, he had to have been lurking somewhere. Come on.
Was that pre the most recent Vince
Oh no,
allegations?
that's after.
It was after. Wow, that's wild. If that's the case, that's crazy.
Yeah, but either way, so Trump's inauguration. I don't have too much to say about it, but we have UFC fighters that are chummy with the president, and they're all trying to want to get on this UFC card. I think this would have been before it was announced, but it looks better in hindsight. You were going back to they reward loyalty. Shit, they were sucking him off at his inauguration. I might as well get him at the White House.
That, I mean, literally took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, this is exactly, I understand entirely every time that Trump is at an event and all of these fighters jump in the cage to go shake his hand. It's not necessarily just because he's the president, people. I mean, like, there is probably a part of that. And that's fine. Look, I mean, however you feel about it, I do still think that there is something to be said for having a level of respect for the leader of the free world. That aside, there is a respect that, or not a respect, there is a loyalty that is valued above all other things. And knowing where your bread is buttered, I think, is a self-preservation mechanism for a lot of people. And also it comes with its own perks on the other side. It's not just being out of like a negative standpoint with people. It's also the positives that come from it. I got to go to the actual White House to go see the inauguration because I am a fighter in the UFC. How crazy. You know what I mean? Like, so these are the perks that come with being that loyal to the organization and the president by extension.
And that definitely leads into the next step here. So Connor obviously went to the inauguration. Connor
Sure did.
visits, but he visits the White House. He has a grand old time. He loves what he's doing there, and then he announces that he's also going to be a president of Ireland.
He
He's
liked it
doing it.
so much that he was like, you know what? I'm doing it too.
He walked into the Oval Office and saw Donald Trump with his feet up on the desk, his Diet Coke and McDonald's, and said, "This shit's fucking awesome. What the hell? I could do that. Like, what? Like, come on." So, yeah, Connor decides he's going to be the president of Ireland. He makes a whole video. He has a good little post about him wanting to change Ireland and do a different whatever the plural of that is, candidate race than the other people have in Ireland. And, he obviously wants to take notes from Donald Trump. This is, you know, people don't want to admit it. And, I know a lot of people, not a lot, I know a handful of people outside of America, but people are really fond of Trump. They do really enjoy the fact that he represents America. He's the American leader. And Connor, in a way, I think he's the same thing. Like, he looks at Donald Trump and he's like, I want to be just like that. I want to be a powerful leader just like him. So
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a reason for it. The charisma aspect of things, I think, goes a long way. The messaging and the presentation of power, I think, goes a long way with people. And I think you're exactly right. I think Connor saw a lot of that and saw that in himself. Now, whether or not he could actually deliver on that is a different story. And my favorite point of all of that element with Connor was when he was at the White House and got into that impromptu press conference where he was like in the press room and then was at the podium, and it was just supposed to be like a photo op, and then he starts like answering questions for the press, and all of a sudden he's like, at the podium as if he was a political figure, and the press secretary lady is like, all right, I think we need to get you the fuck out of here. Like, it was, I loved that because it did show that Connor, like, it takes us a very specific type, and Connor has grand ambition for himself and a grand perception of self. Connor believes these things about himself, but when it comes down to actually being able to execute on these things, you find the other side of the coin.
Well, so when you talk about execution, Connor, he is never one to miss execution. He has always been 100% on point when it comes to getting his point across. And so, getting into the next story that Connor led the headline for in 2025, of course, right after. Well, a little after he announced his presidential run, he ends up sending nudes to Azalea Banks on Twitter. I don't know if anybody forgot this story or if needed clarity. Conor McGregor sent a picture of himself lifting a weight with his dick to Azalea Banks.
Brother had
Um,
a suspended kettlebell
yeah,
hanging off of the Johnson.
and if anybody, if I were to paint more of a picture here, it was at least a 5 pound dumbbell, everybody. So, what is there to say about that? I don't know. Does he practice this every day? Going back to this situation, there's just too many questions to ask. We did a whole segment on it back when it happened, but this one was definitely a very funny aspect. Right after this dude goes to the White House, sees how Trump's living, it gets he must have learned a little too much from Trump, if you ask me, when it comes to all these cases that he's racking up. But
Yeah.
so Connor visits the White House, announces presidential run, sends news to Azalea Banks. We're not looking too hot on this trajectory right now. Any thoughts here?
I, you know, glad that it was a person that was of age. Yeah, no, it's wild because like knowing everything in the Connor sphere, right? I've covered the allegations against Connor, the more major ones, the court trials and all of that. I've covered them very extensively on the channel, like, hours worth of content around that. And to think that there was that in the background. There's D. Devlin in the background, now his wife, for the longest time, his longtime partner, whatever, now his wife, that in the background, the children in the background, the proper 12. That's not even something that we had on the list, but the proper 12 situation with Artem Lobov in the background. All of these things surrounding Connor's life. And this is what he's doing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it really, it speaks to a level. I want to say delusion, but like I don't even think delusion is the right word. I think it's megalomania to an extent where it's like you can have so much chaos going on in the background, but you are just so confident in yourself and so secure in the life that you've created with the amount of money that you have, et cetera, all the yes people around you, all of those things, that this is what you choose to do with your time, is to just try to shoot your shot on a random rapper.
Yeah, I this one was definitely hilarious. I mean, sending the news to Azalea Banks. I mean,
Of
who
all
even
people.
Yeah, I again, we don't even know. Was this like a ploy? Was this a PR stunt? Like, who even knows what was happening here? But the fact is that most people on the internet around that time got to see an in-depth picture of what Conor McGregor carries between his legs, which is an unfortunate picture that I carry with me now for the rest of my life. But it's not as crazy to think about what happens next for Conor, because I don't know if anybody was expecting more. Conor then withdraws from the presidential race.
I
You know,
mean, connection. I don't know, but I certainly the person. So again, this goes to that same element of the megalomania that I was just talking about, because Connor really, in his mind and in his heart, thought that, like, everything that comes with the Connor image was going to be sellable to the Irish people. Now, I mean, there again, if you're looking at Trump as the example that was set for that, I guess I can kind of understand it, but you got to know that there's differences. Like, the things that Trump has, quote unquote, gotten away with, and we're finding more and more out every day, it feels like, with that, there's a wall between the public perception and, like, reality there, I would say, to an extent. Connor puts everything out on Front Street, quite literally, with the picture that we were just talking about. To think that, like, there was not going to be the conversation that was surrounding him in the country of Ireland. Like, I also, speaking of the coverage that I have done on Connor, I recently covered his the case that he has now brought against Sky News. He's suing them for defamation based on something that was said at one of the press scrums from the trial. Like, the Irish press has this perception of him that is, like, they will go after him, like, in a way that I think is like, even as a person who's not, like, a Connor supporter, I think was, like, poor journalism. But, like, it shows you just, like, how he's, like, looked at in that country by certain people. I saw a video also recently of, like, a man on the street kind of thing, where it was just a guy going around to random people in Ireland asking them what they think of Connor, and they're like, he's the worst representation of Ireland that we can imagine. Like, so my point in saying all of that is that it's like, yeah, in some places, in some dynamics, like, a Trump-like figure comes to power and it makes sense. In Ireland, with Connor, with the things that come with Connor, to think that it would have worked is a little bit laughable in hindsight, I would guess.
Well, so the next step that happens here in the Connor progression, I think this one should have been first, and then the presidential run probably would have been possible. But so after everything that had happened, Connor then finds Jesus, and then to cap all that off, he finds Jesus, of course, and then, like you said earlier, and then he ends up getting married to Dee Devlin. That we can add that one onto it as well. That is the arc of Conor McGregor in 2025. God, a lot has happened with this guy. Jesus Christ.
The Connorverse never stops delivering. Great, I guess, if it's something that enriches his life and is going to put him on a better trajectory and life path. Fine. Like, what, it never really, like, I don't I don't have really much of an opinion about it. Like, it's again, like, what does it actually equal up to? Like, is it going to change him as a person? Then okay, then maybe there's some value to it. If it's just window dressing for him to continue being the way that he's always been, then who cares? I mean, it's just another, like, weird little element of his story that, like, you don't know how it's going to affect anything.
Yeah, 100%. Connor is definitely one of the more eccentric characters that the UFC has ever seen. And, I think when you get to that level of stardom in any profession, if you don't go overboard with it, I mean, are you even living out the potential of what you could be? If you're a superstar, you can't just like go on to be normal after that point. I mean, if you're Conor McGregor, you got to just continue being Conor McGregor and doing the most wild things that your mind can think of, because that's what that's what the spotlight is accustomed to seeing. If they saw you just walking around drinking coffee every day, they'd be like, where's fucking Conor McGregor? What happened to the guy we saw in the cage every day? But if he continues up his image of doing the craziest, rambunctious things that he can go on with, people are just like, well, yeah, that's Connor. Like, it's just the normal for him. Like, that's just what we assume.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, you have become accustomed to seeing these things from Connor, but I do think it's unfortunate that it's at the sacrifice of what was a generational athlete on top of all of this. I mean, that to me is always what I come back to whenever Connor's in the discussion. The Connor that people remember as the fighter Connor was a phenom. I mean, like, I always say this about Connor, that, like, like, all of the hype that Connor generated for himself off of the microphone with his actual fighting is legit. there was a reason that he was as exalted as he was. The knockout of Jose Aldo will always be cemented in history as, a crazy accomplishment for what Jose Aldo was exalted as at the time. So I mean, like, there is legitimacy to what Conor built himself up to be, and I think the sacrifice of that to live the lifestyle that he is now living is an unfortunate aspect of everything. So if he is just a cartoon character now, then okay, you're right. I mean, live it out until you can't live it out anymore. I guess it does come with sacrifices, unfortunately. I mean, the fact that he has been able to maintain the family dynamic that he has is mind-boggling to a lot of people. However, that aspect of it, dude, like your life, your money, live it how you want to live it, kind of thing. But I mourn the loss of the Conor that we knew inside of fighting, inside the cage.
Well, this is perfect segue. Perfect segue. We're getting really good segues today. So the next topic that we could talk about is exactly the same thing. A person who, they're a little too rambunctious for their own good, and they have a knack for saying things that they really they they tend to double down that they mean what they say, and we often give them the benefit of the doubt, like, oh, no way, he didn't mean it like that. So this next point that we're getting into, a very big topic for this year, is Bryce Mitchell launches his podcast Arc Insanity. Any notes on that? I know we just had a stream last night from Thinker St. James, and it was phenomenal. I was there watching it for most of it. And if you guys need a good sleep stream, there's one right there for you. So, Thinker, go ahead, run us down Mr. Bryce Mitchell's arc for this year so far.
Oh my Lord, Bryce. Bryce is the gift that keeps on giving, over and over again for me. Yeah, so Bryce, of course, started the Arc Insanity podcast. He had his co-host Rolly Delgado with him, and interesting first episode of that show. Aside from what you know about that episode, perhaps a lot was said there. A whole slew of things. I broke that entire episode down as well. Then of course he comes out with the bar of the year. I would say, saying that he thought that the former leader of the Third Reich was a misunderstood guy that he would want to have a fishing trip with, and that he did good things for Germany and all of these kinds of things. Yeah, when it comes to all of that, Bryce, I think, is a person who is just too dumb to realize how dumb he is, and because of that, he's too dumb to realize that he is as dumb as he is, and also puts himself out there in the, like, he wants to platform himself. Like, this is a lethal combination sometimes for people, but for Bryce, it's just like it's unique. It's its own version of this, and it's entertaining as fuck, to be
It,
perfectly honest.
so Hydra makes a really good point to start off. Bryce might be the only people where context always makes it worse. Absolutely, 100%. Wow, the update of Restream for the comments there is crazy. I don't know if you
Yeah,
can.
I'm gonna have to figure that out.
But either way. So Bryce Mitchell, when you watch his stream like you were doing last night, there's wholesome parts where he's telling you the most reliable vehicles from certain years. You have things like that where he's telling you to get a Toyota Camry because they have a good engine and shit like that. But then, yes, when you look into the outer context of how this discussion came, you're watching a video where you're waiting for him to describe how Santa became gay. So that's where you just are Bryce is just one of those interesting people that he has a podcast where, yeah, when you listen to him, he does talk from like his heart, like you can tell like he means what he says, but you can just tell like, man, he needs some serious help, like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those odd things where there are reasons for it. I'm sure there's a lot of the same rabbit hole that sends a lot of people down the same direction that he has gone down. Which it's the internet age, man. I mean, there's the whole idea of, we were talking about this on that stream last night. Where it's like the idea of objective truth seems to be challenged more and more nowadays, and you have what you thought was reality being augmented and changed by a lot of different opinions, a lot of different retellings of things, a lot of different information that gets glommed onto what reality is like what you thought it was, to the point where it's like what actually is real or is not real anymore. Bryce fits right into that equation with being a platform for a lot of stuff that seems to be a little bit off the wall to some people, and then there are other people who are hook, line, and sinker along the same line of thinking as him. So I don't think that you can really deny that there is a contingency of people that do resonate with the stuff that he says, which to me is pretty dangerous and disturbing. But at the same time, it's a reality that you just have to contend with because this is the modern era.
I can't agree with you anymore. I think Bryce is just one of those. Again, this is why the fight game. We could talk about this any other podcast because there's always going to be those eccentric type of fighters in this game. Mixed martial arts is a mixed bag of personalities, and when it comes to larger sports where people are making millions of dollars on national TV every night, the NBA, the NFL, the MLB, you can't do certain things and you can't act yourself most of the time. You always have to be surrounded by an entourage. You always have to have cameras in your face. You always have to be, you know, you always have to be aware of the representation that you're giving yourself in the UFC and mixed martial arts, period. Bryce Mitchell is the perfect example of somebody who gets to be nothing but themselves and unapologetic for it. And the community, while we disagree with him most of the time, because man, he's again stewed. Hydra makes a good point. He's pretty intelligent. Bryce is intelligent. You can tell his brain functions like it has gears that move. It's the education part. It's like I think there was just a mislap there. I see it. I'm miseducated, uneducated on a lot of different stuff. But the brain moves. But with Bryce, you just got an eccentric personality that I'm just glad that the community understands that he's wrong and he can be wrong. But we love that he's himself. We wouldn't want him to be acting like Colby Covington, for example. Bryce being thug nasty. We know this is a dude who can freestyle in his fucking trailer on his fucking acres of land with his UFC cage that he built out of plywood. Like there's just too many things that make Bryce Mitchell himself that would make you dislike him as a character because if you did, you're taking away such an interesting person on this planet. Like that's just a crazy thing.
Oh, yeah, I mean, this is I think that that's the common misconception when it comes to Bryce and anyone that like I that is like looked at the same way that he is. Like I love MMA for that exact reason, what you just outlined there. It is the last place where you can be at the level of the sport that these athletes get to and still be exactly who you want to be, your authentic self. There is no filter. There is no, I mean, you can have it if you so choose to have it. If you personally decide that you want to have it, then that's your own choice. But you can be whatever you want to be in this sport. And because of that, you end up with some of the most fascinating people on the planet with these major platforms. Like I was saying, Bryce, he not it's different if he was a person that had those beliefs and kept them to himself. He is an outward person with all of this stuff. So because of that, it serves as a very fascinating look into a world that you otherwise may not see, and at least not as directly as you see it from Bryce. And I get to kind of like turn my head to the side and just watch along as all of these very wild things come out of his mouth. So I take a great joy in it in a way. I mean, like people think that, oh, you must hate Bryce. I don't hate Bryce. I am intrigued by Bryce. Bryce is an interesting thing to me that is very odd and very fascinating.
Yeah, most people are on the opposite side of hating Bryce. Most people would like they care so much about him, they want to teach him why he's wrong. Like just because we want to help you, dude. Like we know that you're saying stupid stuff. We would just want you to say less stupid stuff. That's more, acceptable.
Yeah, well, not yeah. I mean, because it's like at Bryce's core, I think Bryce is a good person. Like that's I think what also gets lost in this conversation is that I do think that Bryce, in and of his soul, like he's not a really a hateful person. He's not a person who's out here trying to harm others. He has a very distinct set of beliefs that I think like can be dangerous if you enact them in a dangerous way. I don't think he himself is trying to do that. But that's the whole thing. That's why it's so fascinating is that it's like you're not realizing what you're saying when you're saying these things, and like that is its own problem. You know what I mean? Like Bryce in and of himself I think is a pretty decent guy. It's just it's the things that he says that end up being the problem in a greater broader sense.
Yeah, 100%. And, speaking of bigger problems in the broader sense, I think this is, man, great segues going on tonight, guys. Chad,
Love it.
drop a W for the segues because speaking of whatever I just said, I've already forgot it. But the new gloves for the
Ah,
UFC are gone now, and they were obviously a big fucking problem, guys. They were a big fucking problem because John Jones came back to the sport and said we cannot have them anymore. I you know it's funny because John Jones gets the flack for being, the person who said it, but it does go widely unknown that majority of the people on that card were like long time UFC tenured, like vets. It wasn't just John Jones. Jim Miller was on that card, I think, too, as well. There was just a handful of people that have been around using the old gloves that they also got to the new gloves and said, this is not what we want to do. So the short-lived new gloves, the gold championship gloves as well, they've been retired. And along with the other fighters that we lost this year, we lost the gloves. And I don't know if anybody out there is really feeling a type of way. It feels like it never even happened, kind of a fever dream type of deal. But I vividly can tell you that I saw Khalil Roundtree's face get obliterated by gold gloves that turned red after his face. So that's my interpretation of what happened. Go ahead.
well, fair. I do want to shout out Hydra's comment here and shout you out, Chase. Call Chase Paul Blart the way he handles the segue. I think is a beautiful way to say it. Yeah, no. So the gloves. This is another just one of those like much like the GFL in an odd roundabout way. This is just another little odd footnote that is going to be in the annals of MMA history now, where we had these new gloves that were supposed to be the fix. This was going to be the thing that took eye pokes out of the sport. We were going to have a more fair and adjudicated world where the eye pokes were no longer going to be a problem. And what did they end up doing? Making it a debatable topic whether knockouts were going to be able to be happening still, and essentially pissing off every fighter who had to wear them. So I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Like you said, it's like it's not just John Jones. I mean, yeah, he was the one that ended up being like kind of the face of them getting taken away because he was, I guess, vocal about it. But at the same time, this was the debate that was going on was, like, were these things actually of value? Did it stop eye pokes? No. So, I mean, like, if there was no value to them stopping the eye pokes, which was the big selling point, and people had it in their mind, whether it was true or not is almost secondary. The perception was it was supposed to take away eye pokes. It did not do that. We know that objectively. And then if the perception is it's not, it's making knockouts less, then yeah, take these fucking things away. Failed experiment.
Yeah, I think that is actually the craziest thing about that memory is that the gloves really did hinder performances. Hydra's a little skeptical here. He says we had two bad cards like we constantly do, and there was mass psychosis about how the gloves ended KOs. No, it was really an extended, like if you think back to the last like 4 months, I mean, we've had plenty of finishes, late finishes, early finishes, but when those gloves were around, dude, we weren't getting shit. We were getting a lot of submissions. We had a lot of people who just weren't willing to strike anymore. It was kind of weird. Listen, correct me if I'm wrong. Bruno Fajeda got his first career submission in the new gloves. I could be wrong here, but correct me.
I mean, fair. Whether or not that is true, I mean, we still did get knockouts, but I mean, like that's regardless of whether it, like I was sort of saying, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. I mean, like I think that I'm of the mindset that it was he was saying it's like a mass psychosis. I do think that was probably more accurate personally. That's my personal take on it, based on the fact that we were still seeing knockouts. Like if we didn't see any knockouts, period, fair enough. But like we were still seeing them. It was just wasn't as much for whatever reason. If it was the gloves, then okay. I mean, like, like you decide. You know what I mean? Like if I'd have to see empirical data and break it down to that level. But either way, it was the perception. It were saying that, oh, these new gloves are here and there are less knockouts. We're going to correlate that way. And then also, again, bringing it back to the point with the eye pokes, which was the main selling point, didn't stop them. Then yeah, I mean, it kind of becomes a no-brainer. Like they're not doing the things that they were supposed to do, and potentially, whether it's true or not, were affecting it in a negative way, affecting the sport in a negative way. Makes sense that they're gone. It's just as funny that it was such a big rollout. I don't know if you remember John Anik's video that he did where he was explaining all of the elements of it and was like, yes, this design, they had like the hand in the glove and it was like turning, that digital image of it and stuff. It was like, this is the next wave of glove technology, blah, 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 and Anik with the great voice coming in there, giving us all the description and then quietly out the door.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Yeah, no, that was definitely a time to behold. Will we ever see them try to get new gloves again? Probably not in my timeline. I mean, I was very grateful to be able to have the memory to say, like, I remember the time they changed the glove for 7 months and went back to the other one. But it is the unfortunate reality that we're in right now, and I remember a couple different bangers that went on in the new gloves. Alex Bajeda and Khalil Roundtree is one of the ones that I can tell you was very, very good. I remember, Yuri. I can remember him at the beginning of the second round. He's putting his hands up in the gold gloves, and then the second round starts, and he gets switch kicked in the head by Alex. Like, it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it goes. Now, I also wanted to shout out our guy here, Nikolaus, Uzbiani. If I messed that up, my bad. Appreciate you for stopping by in the chat, bro. But just wanted to give you a shout out, and of course, Savage, you are the goat. But
Always.
um, yeah, no, that the gloves. Thankfully, we got to go ahead and retire those very easily because there was one other person that this is a good segue into the next one. The other person that I remember getting a finish in the gold gloves was Mr. Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades. He became the interim champion. Now, the next segue is the point that for Tom Aspinall to be the interim champion and him to go on a sort of a social media run to coerce John Jones into fighting him for the inevitable like 8 months after is pretty nuts because we still have yet to see this matchup and we are not going to because actually we didn't even mention notable retirements earlier on. I mean, this is gonna touch on another point here, but Dana White announced that John Jones was retiring just randomly at an Azerbaijani press conference. So what is there to say about all of those things? You have Tom Aspinall becoming interim champ. He sits out waiting for John Jones to fight him. John Jones sits out waiting for some big payday, doesn't get it, announces that he's retiring, and then now Dana White just comes out, presumably in a fluster, like he just comes out on the press conference and he's like, John's gone, we got to move on now. It's not like he had some grand like, oh, John's gone, guys, sent out a video like here's the new stuff. He's like he kind of went out there and it kind of felt like he was in a pissy mood about it. Like, well, this dude just kind of fucked everything up. Like, let's just go ahead and get this out the way. Let everybody know that John's gone. There's no reason to cry about it now. John's gone. Tom's not fighting him. We're going to move on to something bigger and better. Tom is now the heavyweight champ. So all of these things happened in this timeline. And for Tom Aspinall, we're going to talk about him on Monday, of course, but for Tom Aspinall, this is the arc that he had for 2025 and the way that it ended, of course. I mean, he's just wasting a lot of years of his career. I know he doesn't necessarily have anything to do with John holding out, but I mean, it's unfortunate. I said this back with Dustin Poirier. Being the champ it's politics. There's a lot of politics that go into being the champion of the world and being an active champion. And Tom Aspinall tried to play that game. He became the interim champ. He did everything he was supposed to do, and he waited for the opportunity to fight the heavyweight champion of the world. It did not happen, and now Tom Aspinall at the end of 2025 is out with eye injury. So a lot of things
Well,
are a lot of
I
things
mean,
unpacked
I
there.
take
Yeah,
a
go
little
ahead.
issue though. You say that Tom sat out. I mean, he defended an interim belt twice.
Yeah,
So
okay, fair,
you
you're
know what I'm
right.
saying? So I mean, I wouldn't say that. You know, I think that's a miscategorization there. Really, I mean, I think that this comes down to the John Jones aspect of all of it. Yeah, John holding up the heavyweight division, you know, keeping it hostage for basically the entire year almost, or at least an entire year's worth of time between 2024 and 2025. Yeah, I think that it's ridiculous that it was allowed to go on that way. Again, we talked about the rewarding of loyalty. I guess Dana knowing what John has done for the organization in the past. Dana always will say, "Oh, John was such a pain in my ass." Blah blah blah. This and that. Well, I mean, he of the active athletes, at least at the time, like, there's only a couple of transcendent athletes in this sport. Connor is one of them. A couple of other names that you might be able to name that people outside of the MMA world know readily. John Jones is probably one of the only other ones, at least the biggest one of the other ones, I would say. So you understand why it all went down that way. However, there was the Stipe Miocic aspect of all of this that John was holding out for, which he ended up getting, of course, and that went exactly as he thought it was going to. And then Tom Aspinall just sort of ends up in this holding pattern, defending an interim belt. I mean, really, this is just a reflection of poor navigation, I think, by the organization at the end of the day. You had the entire fan base all yelling about the same thing and the organization hearing all of it. Because, I mean, this was coming up at press conferences regularly, this and that, hearing it and just actively saying, screw you guys. We hear what you're saying. We don't care. We're going this direction. We want this. This is how we're going to get things to go. And it didn't end up going that way. So yeah, what you say about Dana White announcing it at a random Azerbaijani card in the middle of the night, that almost is the logical conclusion of it, because you made it that way. Your navigation of this whole fiasco ends up with this fucking whimper, a wet fart of a retirement for your goat of the sport. Fitting conclusion to all of this mishandling of everything.
Yeah, it definitely is unfortunate. We had to hear about it for so long, and when you hear about something for so long like that, you presumably assume like it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen if this is all that we can imagine as fans. Like these are the two people that have to fight. It's unfortunate because when I think back to the flyweights and I think of Manel Cap and Kai Car France, they have beef and they will just never fight, it seems. And now that KKF is retired, by the way. He took time off, forgot to mention that earlier. But
Yeah, it was sabbatical. I mean, he's saying he's going to come back at some point. So,
but so it's unfortunate to hear about these two fighters and think about what might be, just for it to never ever even come close to happening, all because the so-called goat of your sport is reluctant to fight for more than just money. I I used to be one, and I wouldn't say it was because I'm an American that I would say that John Jones is the GOAT. It has nothing to do with nationality. It comes down to the accolades. It becomes what John Jones has accomplished at a young age against the competition that he accomplished it against, and the skill sets that he has, yada yada yada. But genuinely, for him to not, when it comes to him not wanting to fight and defend his belt unless it was for X amount of dollars, it genuinely is something that I will always bring up as a deterrent for me to say anything about him being the greatest of anything, because this is the fight game. As a fighter, listen, brother, you don't need fucking $60 million to fucking go fight. And you know how I know you don't is because the moment Donald Trump came out and said that he wants to have a White House, I don't need $60 million. I don't need anything. I just let me on the White House bucket list stuff. This is bucket list stuff. Yeah, I'm sure it is, John Jones. I'm sure it is. So
yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, this is what I think everybody was saying for the longest time during the entire holding pattern that we were all in, is that, John will be remembered for all of the great things that he did, of course, but you cannot divorce that from the perception of him being a duck. I mean, this is, I don't know how you cut it any other way than that. Now, whether or not that would have been, the outcome, whether, it could have been this defining moment that, finally he gets bested by Tom Aspinall or whatever, we will never know now. But the whole reason that it ends up the way that it is because you made the conscious choice to not take the challenge. And that is just always going to be something that you are going to have and hold with you. John will be the first person to tell you that, oh, I don't think about that. Oh, it doesn't bother me, this and that. He prefers to just go the troll route with it because he knows that it gets under the fan's skin, and he can remain relevant just by being by being the troll that was the greatest. And, you can't take that away from me kind of thing. But the real ones know, you know what I mean? Like we are the people that follow this sport. Like we will not forget that. And, I like, if Dana does end up letting him on the White House card, which to his credit, it does not seem like he is going to. I mean, this is at least where it's at right now, that's how things are going. Like, again, fitting conclusion to all of what John put everybody through. Like, this is your reward for it, is not getting the thing that you want. You didn't give us what we wanted, John. Now you finally do not get what you want as well.
Yeah, I really hope he does not get on the White House card. As much as I would love to, I could name a handful of American fighters that I believe should be on the White House card. John Jones potentially could be on that list, but I don't care to see him on there because I know that he only wants money to fight at this point, and the fact that he doesn't want it now, and he didn't want to fight Tom Aspinall before, but he'll fight on the White House. He'll fight Alex Pereira. He'll fight anybody on the White House. But he didn't want to fight Tom Aspinall unless it was for the amount of money that he couldn't even make selling out the venue. Like it's just the craziest shit to think about.
Yeah, they were going to give him anything that he wanted, and it wasn't enough.
hmm
So,
I yeah,
oh
you know,
well.
Uh, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's the craziest thing ever. But I wanted to actually get to this point. This was a great segue since I didn't have one myself. We had the chat asking about what we thought about the Georgian fighters. So I'm going to go ahead and give a great segue into the year of Merab Dvalishvili.
Hey,
So this man here, arguably going to be the fighter of the year on this show. I think the UFC already named him the fighter of the year. I'm not too particularly sure. I know he did not end as the UFC champion, but you cannot deny what he has done in the short amount of time against, the competition that he's done in the year of 2025. He's definitely that guy. I will give him that.
I mean, yeah, Nicolos Uzabiani in the chat here talking about, what are the perceptions of Georgian fighters. I mean, Merab being the man certainly has risen the stock, I think, of Georgian fighters. Yeah, I mean, yes, there always was I think a high perception of Georgian fighters even before this year for Merab. But I mean, after seeing what Merab has accomplished this year, even regardless of the loss to Piotr Jan, I think that you cannot deny the greatness that is coming out of Georgia between him, Ilya with the Georgian connection. Obviously that's a little bit different with Spain and all that, but still, there are great fighters coming out of Georgia, and for a country of its size to be graduating such high level competitors is remarkable, really. I mean, I think that it's because we talk often, in our conversations about emerging markets and the different places where MMA has taken hold, and how like it evolves over time in these countries. Georgia, a small nation that has really gotten to the top of the heap in a very real way in what seems like a short amount of time, I would say, in the big picture.
I just think of the funniest thing. I don't know if I sent it in the Discord, but it was just really funny. So there was a video of what the fuck, Bogdan Gushkov, and they were asking about Peter Yan and Marab, and he was like, "Yeah, 100%. Peter Yan beats him 10 times out of 10 times." And somebody replied to the tweet, I don't know, just me, probably more likely at least 9 out of 10 times. Just really funny.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes sense considering the history there. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, like we want to have these perceptions of these fighters being superhuman, and I certainly like wanted that for Marab. So I do feel like we talked about that on the last week's fights when we were reviewing that card. Like, I like that narrative as well. I thought Marab could be that based on the way that he fights and all that. Him not being that does not really change the greatness that I think that he has and has shown this year. I think that the only thing might have been flying a little too close to the sun with taking fights as back to back as he did. That at least could have played some part in it. And also Piotr Jan just being great as well. That, one person's greatness does not necessarily take away from another's person's greatness when they go head to head like that. Piotr Jan just happened to have the better skill set, and a better counter plan to what Merab was doing in that specific fight. But overall, this was such a crazy year for Merab doing what he did, and doing it as quickly as he did. I mean, really, the if you want to call it a fall because of the loss, then okay. But like, if you want to put it in the framework of the rise and the fall, all took place within 2025. I mean, that in and of itself is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of, champions with the rise and the fall, of course, in this year, we had a couple different other changes of the guard that we can run down. We had Marab in his miraculous year, but if we want to stick up on the Georgian fighters, of course, we'll go to Ilya. Ilya vacated his 145 belt earlier this year, and then got a 155 vacant title matchup against Charles Oliveira. He then won by knockout. I mean, phenomenal thing. I mean, we've never seen Charles lifeless. I mean, this is something that nobody is. The way
Well,
that he did it, dude. I mean,
Islam didn't do him like that. You don't think?
mm,
I mean, he was pretty. He was pretty out.
Charles,
I mean, when Makachev won the belt, no.
he submission. I mean, it wasn't. He was tapping like chicken.
I mean, didn't he? But he dropped him first. No. I
I
mean, am I
mean,
wrong? Maybe I'm wrong.
he did drop him, but he didn't leave him unconscious. But
Okay,
either way,
fair enough.
Ilya took the belt in a way that we have never seen, especially from somebody who vacated the belt, and we were like, "What the fuck? You just fucking knocked out Volkanovski. You're gonna ruin this dude's career just to go vacate the fucking belt." Then he goes up to 55, knocks out Charles, derails what we thought was a good comeback for Charles. Obviously we get to see what he has later on, but Ilya vacates the belt, gets the 155 belt, and then of course here we are later down the line. He is now potentially on the skirts with his 155 belt because he's going through some issues with his ex-wife. I don't know, did they say specifically if it's like custody issues or is it just like financials or
Oh yeah, no. Well, I mean, this is actually something that we haven't. I mean, this would have been good for like a regular free for all
Mhm.
sometime during the year, but the facts are a little nebulous. But no, I mean, this is it is custody related as well, but also that she was claiming that she was going to be coming forth with some abuse allegations,
Mhm.
and that was disputed by Ilya, and he said that he had proof that that was not the case, that they were false allegations, and the truth is somewhere in the middle that we don't really know what it is exactly right now.
Yeah, so that is definitely going to be interesting on what happens going forward with Ilya. But as of his 2025, I mean, you still cannot argue that he didn't have. He had what some people aspire to have in their career. You get a belt, somehow lose it, whether you give it up, relinquish it, lose it, whatever. Go up to another weight class, get another belt. He in 1 year, Ilya had a whole career for somebody who is a great fighter.
Yeah,
So
definitely that. I mean, like it's one of those things that you can kind of interpret it a couple of different ways, and it really comes down to how you feel about like what you want out of your fighters. Because you're right. On the one hand, he's like speed running a career. I mean, like he's going through it, knocking through his competition, and doing everything that he says he's going to do as he says he's going to do it. There is definitely an amazing impressiveness to that. On the other hand, the fact that he is so cavalier about doing it his way does leave something to be desired from a fan's perspective. I would say it's like you want a dominant champion. You want to see them continue being dominant. You want to see them grow as a champion. And with a person like Ilya, who has done it so definitively, so quickly, it like if he speed runs it to the point where he does end up doing what he's been saying, where, oh, I only have a couple more years in MMA and then I'm going to go do boxing or whatever else he's going to do. It's like you almost end up in the Habib conundrum where it's like, you leave the sport too early and then now everything that you accomplished has to be kind of cloaked in this perception that, oh, you cut and run. And you will never, the problem is like whether that's true or not, whether it's like, oh, he could have just stayed around and just kept knocking heads off for the rest of his life. We will never know, and that's the problem. You know what I mean? So you kind of have it a double-edged sword with that one.
yeah, it's unfortunate. You'll never. There will never be a correct way to vacate a title. It's unfortunate as a fan, you want to see them defend it until they lose it. So the fact that somebody will willingly give up the belt to go to a different weight class because they're confident they'll go into that weight class and dominate, it's one thing, but it's also another thing for that person to vacate one title, then go get another title, then to potentially be vacating that title as well because of some other outstanding issues. It's not it unfortunately, as somebody who's reading this as a fan of the sport, it really threw a wrench into two different divisions. If you wouldn't have been so hell bent on being some three division champ, because eventually he's probably going to go to welterweight, is what they're alluding to for Ilya Taporia. But uh,
Wild.
you could have just ruined 45, and that's fine. But like going to 45, vacating, then going to 55. I know you can't plan what happened at 55, but in theory, you're leaving there to go to 70. That's the plan too. It's like, I don't know. I like Ilya, but the thing is, we have too many people that are, vacating the titles and with aspirations to go do things that are outside of the comfort zone is not always a bad thing. I'm not trying to frame it that way, but in these situations, the next person that we're going to talk about that vacated their title, Islam Makhachev. He came in here and we'll talk about what happened at the beginning of the year in a package here, of course. So he had a main event with Arman Sarukian, and Arman Sarukian hurt his back or got fat. Who knows what happened? And he pulls out. And so Hanato Moicano steps up on 1 day's notice and gets finished in the first round by submission. Islam Makhachev, coming off of a win on 2 days' notice, whatever the hell the case may be, he's walking around as the champ for another 6 months until Ilya vacates his title and decides to go to 155. In that moment, that is when Ilya sent shivers down Islam's spine, and Islam said, "I cannot no, I no longer can be in this division. I'm going to go to 70 now." And as soon as that happened, I realized that we were never going to get a super fight between Islam and Ilya, and two, B, Islam is 100% terrified of what Ilya could do to his career. And what that is derail it. It's not that he could do it in a way that would discredit everything that Islam has done, but it would derail the what Islam is presuming can be his story, his Cinderella storybook ending kind of deal. If he goes up against Ilya, he potentially does not wake up, not die, but like gets knocked unconscious, and then he's at fault of a knockout, and then he's got to base the rest of his career around his chin and what he's going to do to not get hit, and if he's going to wrestle, whatever the case may be. Ilya was the reason that Islam is now at 170, and he then went and got a belt. So like what can you say?
Well, I mean, I think you're discounting the fact that Ilya, or excuse me, that Islam had said that he was planning on doing that himself already before Ilya was in the position that he was in, though. So, I mean, like both of them kind of speed running in a similar way. Now, I do understand, and I do think that there is some legitimacy to what you're saying. That like the timing certainly like looks that way, and the fight was the fight to make, and it's the fight that everybody wanted. So there again, these fighters like there there's like no real respect for the fan base, I guess, is kind of one of the unfortunate aspects. Which, look, you don't have to have respect for the fan base. It's not your job. Your job is to go in
Mhm.
and fight. Like, we watch you fight. That's all you really need to do. But it does suck for us because like that was I mean, like when you talk about super fights, especially after being denied Jones and Aspinall for the entirety of the time that we were sitting there waiting for that, this was the fight. This was the fight that could have been the world's colliding fight. I guarantee you that the organization wanted that. So, like, whatever the reason is, whether it's the speed running aspect of it, the father's plan, the fucking the double champ, any of the things that you can say could be the reasons for it. Who loses in the end? The fans lose.
Yeah, I love that point, Hydra. He's been wanting to move to welterweight for 5 years. Just so happens when Ilya moves division.
And
That's
that there is something to be said for that too. I do acknowledge that. Yeah.
because, like, it's funny because in Islam's mind, okay, Islam is the champ of 155. He stays and Ilya moves up. It's like he's not fighting Ilya first. He potentially was probably going to have a Charles rematch or an Armin, whatever you want to, the case may be. He was having these set up before Ilya, but he was so afraid that after one fight that they were going to be Ilya was going to go in there and have one performance in 55 that was going to give him a title shot. And Islam knew he had to get out of there before that was even possible for them to start making negotiations about. And that's just the fact about it. He went up to 70 because he's gonna do as much as he can to stall before so Ilya can lose against people that are bigger than him, of course, until the time comes where he doesn't have to fight him. And I unfortunately just hate seeing it. It's not like a statistical fact. It's not like, oh my god, Islam is like factually not gonna fight Ilya. He's scared of 100%. But like, if you have a fight that you want made, and these are two of the best fighters, and they both are not fighting. I mean, I I don't know. One dude went up to the weight class where the dude was at. The other one left the weight class where the other dude came to. So it's kind of, what can you say? You
Well,
know.
I mean, I love the Habib quote that he came out with when the move did happen for Ilya, and he said like, "Oh, well, we want to move up because it's like, why would we have fight another like, not true guy of the weight class? You know what I mean? Like another dude who's like a lower weight guy, whatever. It's not really proving yourself." And I'm like, brother, what the fuck are a crock of bullshit are you trying to sell to us with that statement? Um, yeah, it's a bad look in the big picture. At the same time, it's like, you know, the, everybody's chasing greatness and they're doing it with this double champ status when the real move is to just fight the best guys. And um like it's like they're doing it for themselves, which I guess is really at the end of the day what you should be doing. So I guess I can't really be too mad at that. But like I guess maybe they don't realize that like having two belts based on career navigation and sidestepping and being a savvy a savvy negotiator, a savvy a navigator of your career does not speak as loudly as fighting and beating the best guys out there in the game. And it's crazy to think about all this because like I would say, and I think a lot of people would agree that like Islam has the skill set that could neutralize the things that Ilya is good at. I would
Mate, he's
say.
got like 60 pounds on him. He should be able to do whatever the fuck he wants with him in the grappling, but he's terrified that that's not
Well,
even
not if they were in
possible.
the same weight though.
Yeah, he's a weight bully.
Well, I mean,
He's
people have
gonna.
said, yeah, that is, I mean, that's the Dagestani way, right? Um, Fair. I mean, then okay, then all of those things. So it's like, yeah, again, this is the perception, whether he likes it or not. He can kind of couch it however he wants, and he can have Habib coming out and saying anything that he wants to try to change the perception. But you had the opportunity to have that fight. All of the elements were in place for it. Like that's the other thing that's so crazy about it is that like the crossroads were right there. Title was undisputed. You were all everything else was cleared out. All of the other aspects of the the holdup was not there. There was no roadblocks to that fight being made, and they just didn't.
Yeah, no, 100%. And Hydra, yeah, listen, the way, when it comes to what Ilya did in the featherweight division and how he didn't clear it out, mate, he beat Max and Volk. I mean, that's all you really needed to do at that point. I mean, beating Emmett and some other people, fucking Damon Jackson on his way up. I mean, those don't even matter. Clearing out the division, you beat Max and Volk. That's good enough for me. Moving up is fine. Getting Charles on his entry, it's crazy to just obliterate him and then get the belt. But I think again it goes back to the original point. The fans were robbed that we did not get this super fight, and the fact that we never will get to see them. And literally, we know that this was the peak of Ilya. This was the peak of Islam, and we are not going to get that fight. It's unfortunate, and I still stand by it. I mean, Mister, I have my quote on the PI wall about fighting King Kong if he can make the fucking weight. Now Ilya had you jumping and shivering out your fucking boots. I'm just I don't know. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah, and whether or not that is true or not really is secondary because that's the stamp that you get.
Yeah, 100%. No, and then so we had one more person that vacated their title, of course, that we have to talk about. This one went the worst, and this one hurt my heart a lot. So obviously, Wei Li Zhang. vacated her title and moved up to go ahead and try to get a second belt from Valentina Shevchenko. Now, what we did not realize was that Valentina is as good as she ever was. I mean, she is still very, very good, and she's just a lot bigger than what the weight class under her are. Whatever straw weight and flyweight difference is, 15 pounds, 10 pounds. She fills out a frame that can manhandle women below her. And you know how I know is because Whaley has a frame that manhandles the women in her division. And if Shevchenko was able to just negate everything that Whaley had, I mean, I'm saying like this was, we're going to talk about it on Monday. I mean, upset of the year. I mean, I know the odds would not tell you that this was the craziest upset, but to just dominate the champion for 5 rounds is absolutely insanity. So,
Yeah, I mean, again, you say that we didn't know that Valentina was that. I mean, we should have. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that. I think that that's really what it comes down to. Valentina has proven that time and time again. I guess the perception based on the Alexa Grasso era of her career, kind of changes that to a little extent. But you go back before that and after that, and all you have is greatness from Valentina. So yeah, I mean, Zhang Weilei, you got to give her the credit for having the mentality of strive for greatness, dare to be great kind of thing. I remember when Israel Adesanya fought Jan Blachowicz, that was, he lost that fight and said, yeah, I dare to be great. I was trying. I think that there was some element of that too, and there is some respect that has to be given for that. But at the end of the day, if, again, another flying too close to the sun kind of issue when it came to that fight, because it was so very one-sided, and it was hard to see, knowing what Zhang is capable of against. And my whole thing with that, when I was going into that, was I was basing a lot of my thought process on what we saw Zhang Weilei do against Tatiana Suarez. I was like, that to me seemed like a good comparison, because Tatiana Suarez, grappling, specialist, or at least was considered that until she got into the upper echelons. She was able to negate everything that she was good at, and Tatiana Suarez was so much bigger than Zhang Weilei. So I was like, all right, there might be something there. Valentina Shevchenko is not Tatiana Suarez, and she is not any other woman on this planet. She is her, and that's what you just got to know about it.
What I loved most about this performance is, and this is the key difference between, personalities between people. Zhang Weilei got dominated for 5 rounds. Okay. And, that is not something to hang your hat on. But when the post fight speech came, what she said specifically, she said, to my fans out there, don't worry about me. I'm not sad. I'm not mad. I'm cool. Like, I knew what I was going up against. She genuinely was just happy to have a performance against another great female mixed martial artist. And I think that's what Islam and Ilya were just missing, is like, why did they not want to, put on a super fight? That could have been, two dudes that wanted to test how great they were in mixed martial arts. That's what the UFC is supposed to be about. This is the top level of the top level. I I saw Whaley and Shevchenko because I know these are the two best women as of right now in those weight classes, and I got a performance, and I'm glad that Whaley had the mindset that she's gonna uh, not necessarily be mad at herself for losing, but like enjoy. You've had a long career already. Enjoy the moment that you can. You got to fight. You went toe to toe with one of the greatest female athletes of all time. You may have got smoked, but you were outnumbered, outmanned, whatever you want to say. It was, the cards just weren't on the table for you. You can always go back to the drawing board and think about what's going next, and hopefully you're going to go back and get your belt. I mean, Mackenzie Dern is clearly not going to beat you, so yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right about the comparison there with with Ilya and Islam, and like the differences. There are people who the navigation of the career and the self preservation aspect like plays more of a factor in how they operate than others. I mean, like, again, you think with Habib being the leader of the camp over there with Dagestan and everything, it kind of tracks. I mean, a guy who retired from the sport with his record intact, off of what a lot of people would say is a padded record early on at the very least. I mean, when he finally was at the top of the sport, he was doing his thing against the top at the time. I guess you can debate certain aspects of that. Whatever. The point is that he was at the top and he did do the damn thing. But there was a navigation that got him into that position in the first place, and some people go that route. I think that there is definitely a respect level that has to come with somebody who doesn't consider that, like Zhang Weilei didn't. She said, look, I'm going to go out there and test myself against the very best and do it at a weight that's not even natural to me. I'm going to have
Mhm.
to, that in and of itself also a challenge. So yeah, a lot of respect comes with that. And I'm glad that she has that mentality of being like, look, at least I did it. And again, I bring up Israel Adesanya. Respect for him as well for that exact same reason. He wasn't down on himself in that loss to Jan Blachowicz. He said, this was a challenge. This was a daring to be great moment. If it doesn't work out, at least you had the balls and the wherewithal to make the attempt on it. There's respect that comes with that.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, so, coming into the next topic, speaking of respect, there's a lot of things that in this world I respect, and I gain respect for people, but in this fight specifically, I lost respect for the referee, the officiating. They let
Uh-oh.
they let this fighter down. And this is one of the most brutal performances that we've seen in the longest time. This happened in Abu Dhabi, I believe, and we had Mr. Stephen Wen versus Muhammad Yahya, and we saw a knockdown record be set of unofficially 7, but 8 was the tally that I had totaled in my recollection when I watched it twice. So this was, just a brutal performance. Like I said, I mean, Stephen Wen coming out here, putting on a nasty performance, dropping Muhammad Yahya 7 different times untallied. Jason Herzog, we obviously are going to talk about him in a little bit with his scandals and shit like that, but he let the fighter down at this point. He was not looking out for his safety, not one bit. He was expecting to get the same praise that the Mexican fans were giving to the Mexican fighters, like, oh, they were letting them go, they were letting them dog it out, you can't stop a Mexican fight like that. Muhammad Yahya needed to not be in that fight any longer. His head is probably, I mean, the swelling on his head was really bad, but the concussions alone, I mean, if you don't think not one concussion happened, I go ahead, Google what a concussion is, because he got his brain rattled a couple different times.
Yeah, the problem with that one, if you go back and look at it, was the fact that Yaya was just so ready to get back in the fight, though, every single time. I do think that there is something to be said for, the too tough for your own good aspect of it. And yeah, the referee probably should have stopped it at some point a little bit earlier than 8 knockdowns. But I give the guy credit for being that tenacious to because like he wasn't ever like out. Like that's the problem. I understand where Herzog was coming from to an extent with it. But it was bad, like a bad look in the big picture. And yeah, really, I think that the crazier part is just that it was a record in general. I mean, like that, like we saw a record setting fight by two people who, I mean, otherwise would not necessarily, I mean, who knows what either of them will go on to become. But in the moment, neither of them, major names in the sport. And all of a sudden, in this kind of, a history making fight, just sort of out of random.
Yeah. Yeah, this one was this is a crazy fight. One of the more interesting ones that you could always go back and watch, because when you go through the lens of knowing that Jason Herzog is potentially being paid off to fix these fights, this fight right here looks a little fucking sketchy.
Well,
And
yeah, that's a bigger issue, right?
yeah, but it's obviously you can't pay Herzog to pay, Muhammad Yahya to get up every single time. It's not necessarily how that would work. But uh, did he have a way to make this fight go longer than it should have? I definitely think that is possible, because Muhammad Yahya, I mean, and when you look at one in Muay Thai, they have a 3 knockdown rule in 1 round, 4 per fight. In this fight, I genuinely think if you watch this guy get knocked down 5 times in a round, it's like after 4, you're sitting here saying, okay, the next one like, there's no way you can get knocked down again, dude. 6, 7, potentially even 8 different times. Like, it's absolutely astronomical how many times this dude got knocked down in the fight and like nothing came of it. Stephen Wynn, shout out to him, but it looks like he was having the easiest time of his life just beating this dude's ass. Like, he was in there having fun, every time he'd drop and put his hands up and walk away. And he's like, "Oh, you're serious? Like, I got to do it again?" Like, so it's just unfortunate that, you know, it's unfortunate that Stephen Wynn had to go ahead and break a record because he should have had a 30-second knockout after the second knockdown or whatever, you know?
True. Yeah. Well, again, the dude pops back up. What are you supposed to do? I mean, but after a certain point, I do get it too. It's like the guy's all
Yeah,
battered up. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what Stephen Wynn's nickname is or was at the time, but it should be Mr. Knockdown. That I think has to happen at this point.
I
Remind
do like
people.
that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and also like just a good way to build a little bit of name recognition because I guarantee you that people are not necessarily remembering Stephen Wynn. Just like if you remind them of that, they'll remember. But like off the name alone, those kinds of things, even with it being a history making event, time erases memory, or it erodes memory,
Mhm.
as it goes on. But you have a nickname like Mr. Knockdown. It's like, oh, that's why. Okay, yeah,
All right. Well, since you want to bring up cool nicknames, we'll clearly
yes.
get into this next topic because I think this is perfectly fitting when it comes into aura and the nicknames that carry it. So we recently had a couple different adventures and avenues where we took down the exciting and eccentric personality of Mr. Mark Kerr, and so he came in here with this awesome nickname, the Smashing Machine. And I don't know if anybody knew, but you should by now. There's a documentary about him. There is a movie about him that's starring Dwayne The Rock, not even The Rock anymore, Johnson. And if anybody knew, he was nominated for some Razzie Award or something. I don't know. But I don't
Was
know.
he?
No, it
Oh
was like a
God, I
Grammy
hope
or
not.
something. But either way,
Didn't
the
deserve a
Smashing
Razzie.
Machine was a decent movie and it did come out in 2025 and we actually had a whole there was a whole grand scheme of things going on with the Smashing Machine around here. I mean, we watched the documentary, we talked about the documentary, we watched the trailers of the movie, we talked about how the movie might come out. We actually watched the movie when it came out. We talked about the movie after it came out. A lot of different things went on around this channel, these channels per se, and the Smashing Machine. So, Thinker, at the end of 2025, go ahead, give your regards to the Smashing Machine.
Well, I mean, obviously, I had to include the Smashing Machine in the year-end wrap-up. Obviously, because it is a moment in MMA. I mean, it's an MMA film. It's MMA on a grander scale for a wider audience than us hardcore fans and stuff like that. But it does hold a very special place in my heart for all of what you just outlined. I mean, the fact that we might have very well been the first channel to put out a review on the film after it came out. We saw it the day before it came out, really. I mean,
Yes.
it was the official release date with that was that Friday, and we ended up seeing it on the Thursday. So I mean, we look, we are aficionados of the Smashing Machine world at this point, and the documentary will always be one of the most important pieces of MMA media, if not the most important to me anyway.
We should
So
get some hard copy versions of it.
I would love that. I really would love that. Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to have a poster if they did any kind of promo for it or something like that at some point would be great. But yeah, I think that it was one of those issues where um, we had a lot of hopes for it, and I don't think that we necessarily got everything that we wanted out of the final product, but the entirety of what it represented for MMA, for this channel, for our channels. I mean, like, I think that there's, kind of like, it will always hold a very special place to me, in the grand scheme of everything. I have a lot of really fond memories of like all of everything that we've done with the Smashing Machine. So, no matter like how that film is like remembered in history, obviously it did not do very well at the box office. It kind of did not live up to what we were hoping it would be.
That
Uh,
fucking Marty Supreme movie did like 10.8 million, dude. Like, Jesus fucking
Yeah, the
Christ.
Mario Supreme movie. That's ironically is his brother who directed that. Benny Safdie is directed the Smashing Machine, and Josh Safdie directed Marty Supreme. Yeah, again, it's one of those unfortunate things that it wasn't what we were really hoping and wanting out of it. But no, it's still got a lot of love for it in the big picture, and I think that it was a fun time. I really I think that this is if I can have one little part that's just for us, you and me, Chase. It's like it was fun getting to we'd be like, okay, we're gonna go. We got to make sure we get there at the first showing. We got to make sure that we're doing the review as quickly as we can. We had this thing planned for months and stuff. So I just yeah, I look back very fondly on that portion of the year.
No, I definitely agree because, like, for somebody like myself who's a new fan, I started watching religiously after COVID. I know specifically a lot of different real world, things that Mark Kerr and Mark Coleman were involved with before they got into the UFC. I know who a true pioneer of the sport is. Like, I've seen what they were like and what they went through, what they put their bodies through, the mentalities that they had, the way that they had to carry themselves in different regions of the world through their love of mixed martial arts. It's not what it is these days. A lot of people, they get a pampered experience of what being a mixed martial artist once was. These are people who, Mark Kerr is in a region that he doesn't speak the language. He is there to put on performances where he is in physical combat. It is not necessarily the easiest profession in the world, especially when, it back in that time, again, doesn't have many people that speak English around him. I'm sure he's very lonely. He's probably not, the most talkative person to the natives, whatever you want to say, because what I'm getting at is it's a very seldom life for a lot of the fighters, I would say. And when it comes to what they're doing and what they have to experience, it's a very unique situation that we got to see from the lens of Mark Kerr in the actual documentary, and then with the recreation of the movie. I think there was just a lot of good things that we got to learn, not only about Mark Kerr but about Mark Coleman as well. And then as we, to current day, learning about how he saved his family from a fire. There's just these are real people that have lives, and the fact that Mark Coleman, that when I saw him in the documentary, he could have been fucking 35 years old, and now we're 30 years later. There's still more to this. It's not like his life stopped after the documentary turned off. He had a continuation of everything that he went on to do. So it's just interesting to think that in the documentary, the way that you're witnessing everything from a first person's view lens, like you're literally witnessing Mark Kerr shoot up painkillers. Like there's just something real to that. And a lot of people are, again, a pampered experience of what mixed martial artists now are these days. They'll sit out and ask for 30 fucking $1 million for the person that they want to fight. But back in the day, all Mark Kerr wanted to do was make some money in Japan. I mean, it ain't nothing too crazy to that. And then go fly home and be with his fucking abusive girlfriend. Like,
Indeed. Well, yeah, and to that point, I did want to highlight this. I mean, Savage coming in, saying Mark Kerr is mid. I think that actually is like kind of the point. You know what I mean? Like it's like, yeah, he was not necessarily the greatest at the sport. He was the realness of the sport, and and the portrayal of that in the documentary, and then of course subsequently in the movie. Like all of what you had said just now, Chase. Kind of your recounting of like the atmosphere that he was in his career. That was all basically kind of the point of the text on the screen at the very end of the film, right before he waves to the camera goodbye. So
yes.
it's like that it kind of proves the point of like why it's important that a story like his is told, and why I appreciate it. Yeah, you can all the greats of the sport will be remembered. Fedor, to this day, you're getting the debates on how would Fedor do in his prime if he was in the UFC now, blah blah blah. The Mark Kerrs of the world don't get that level of adulation. They do not get that elevation of them. They're just another name on the roster in a lot of cases, sadly. And like a story like his deserves to be told like anybody else's, especially for the time and place that it occupied.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of stories that need to be told, this next segue, of course, this is into the biggest story of 2025. This was towards the end of the year, but it's definitely something that we have to bring up. We cannot talk about 2025 ever again without bringing up this specific storyline. And if anybody is out there wondering what you can do to make any of your favorite fighters have an off night, is if you walk up to them in a dark alley and offer them $70,000, like somebody did to Isaac Dolgarian, you will certainly find that you can take any of your favorite fighters and put them on the losing side of a fight, because Isaac Dolgarian came out here clearly, clearly, not even just my point of view saying clearly, I personally thought it was a very good performative performative piece. I'm like, damn, he really is looking like he's trying. That fucking Cuban guy is strong as hell. But no, professionals in the sport. Michael Chiesa, somebody who I take his opinion very, very seriously. He even was on the side of Isaac Dolgarian being some sort of an actor in this performance, and it's just unfortunate that he didn't, he wasn't able to sell it enough, is what the case may be, because now the FBI is investigating him and potentially the team and Jason Herzog, and who knows what Cash Patel has got up his sleeve. But all the things considered, we know that Isaac Dolgarian is no longer with the UFC. We know the UFC was onto it before the fight started. That's what they say. And heading forward, we normally look at all these fights that look a little scandalous, and we're gonna say, "Wow, that looks rigged as fucked." But this one in particular probably was the one and only rigged fight that we have seen in the last handful of times.
I mean, hard to say that that's the truth. It's exactly like you said. I mean, it puts a lot of different things into perspective. Yeah, I mean, this intro that you gave it, I don't really think was hyperbolic. Honestly, I do think that this is one of the biggest stories, if not the biggest story of the year. I mean, especially for the fact that if knowing all of the details of it, we've talked a little bit about it on the channel, of course. The aspect of James Krause being possibly involved and the connections there and the previous betting incidents with James Krause. I mean, this being this also coming at the time that sports gambling has become so mainstream, and gambling in general. I mean, all of these predictive markets with Polymarket and Kalshi and all these kind of organizations, like betting and gambling is at like an all-time boom, I would say. And only getting bigger, it would seem. So the fact that it affects our sport so directly and so brazenly. I mean, I put out a clip of, it was me and the Vitz King doing the watch along. And like, I put out the clips of like us finding out in real time, like as people in the chat were coming through with the information and as we were seeing the lines move and all of this stuff. Like, to have the narrative be presented to you in such a definitive way to the point where you can pinpoint aspects of it and like create a storyline out of it, like point by point, really makes this one of the most unique cases of it. I mean, like, because the last one with Krause and the previous fight that had the fixing allegations with Shailen Nordembeke, like that one, it had certain like trappings of this, but like it was a little bit harder to like piece it all together because it was the first of its kind, at least in the modern era, that we could say was like a definitive version of this where there was a fix in this one. All of those steps were laid out for you very clearly, and to see it all happening in real time and then analyzing it as we have had to now, and then the fact of what you had said, potentially with Jason Herzog and other, if there's referee involvement as well, all of these things now put a very skew onto everything that we see going forward, and that is very disturbing, I would say. And again, the way I described it is, it's not fun. It takes away an aspect of the love of this sport, because now if you always have to be looking over your shoulder at any given moment to say, oh, is this the fix? Is this the one that's fixed? Was this something? Was he trying to get this to round 3? Was he? All of these things. It takes away the pureness of it. Not that there was any necessary pureness to begin with, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, there's an understanding that you're watching an actual legitimate bout, and if you take that away, I think you take away a piece of what makes the sport great.
I remember I brought it up during the one of the podcasts that we talked about this specifically, but I would really want to know, I would love for somebody to interview Devalle, our Cuban opponent from this matchup. I would really love somebody to interview him and just get his side of the story of what happened afterwards. Because if this is some sort of scandal, if this is some sort of investigation that has to be done, I brought it up before, he is involved. He is looped into the investigation by being a part of the competition. If one person is fluking it, you have to reasonably suspect that the other person might be in on it as well. You have to at least question if they knew anything, if there was any possibility that they were in on it. Did anybody offer them any money? What were the circumstances leading up to the fight? Anything like that. These are all important questions that Devalle is. I'm not saying he needs to answer for me, but I potentially think he probably had to answer them for somebody else, some higher up. Dana might have called him like, "Hey, what's going on with this fight?" He might have even got a call before the fight, and he's confused. Like, what is Dana talking about? Like, why would he ask if I know anything about fight fixing? If somebody offered me money, who knows what the case may be. I think it's unfortunate that he's looped into it, but I would really like to hear if anything had happened on his side of the story.
Yeah, I mean, I would think he'd be answering to the FBI if anybody's asking the questions at that point, for sure. I mean, unfortunately so, and I guess to the benefit of Isaac Dolgarian and his people that he was involved with, his co-conspirators, the FBI has bigger fish to fry at the moment. So a lot of redacting going on right now in the FBI that they're very busy with. So maybe this case is not as important right now to them, but it's very important to the sport. So I really do hope that whether it's this administration or the next, or whoever ends up taking up this cause, that it is something that is pursued to the fullest extent of the law, and that they get a handle on in a real way and send a message in a real way. It's I mean, there's so much money that is at stake with when it comes to the level of sports betting that we have now, and also with the predictive markets and stuff like that. I mean, people have talked about this in a broader conspiratorial sense, but like, somebody there was a great reel that came out, and this is just a minor tangent and we'll move on from it. But let's say that you were betting on if GTA 6 was going to come out on time, right? You have somebody on the inside that works at Rockstar. They go in and manipulate the files to the point where it doesn't necessarily break the game, but it makes it so that they miss the deadline. You put all of that money on and them missing the deadline in these predictive markets. You just made a ridiculous amount of money off of very minor manipulations. You take that and apply that to our sport here, where there are so many micro things that can happen with any athlete. You tweak an ankle,
Yes.
you talk to this person, these kinds of things are so able to be manipulated that a broader problem could be brewing if it's not nipped in the bud as effectively as it could be.
Yeah, all you need is one guy who wears sunglasses inside and a TV cable, and then it takes a whole fucking turn for somebody like Tony Ferguson. You know
I
all what I'm
mean,
saying?
we missed out on one of the the what could have been one of the great fights of all time because of that TV cable. And
Yeah.
and who knows who put that TV cable there, you know what I mean? And again, you'd think that it would be like, oh, that's funny to say and it's a ha thing, but like in
Who
what we're
was it?
talking.
Literally, who
But
was it?
but this is what I'm saying. In the conversation that we're having right now, there is legitimacy to that question. And that, I think, is the problem in and of itself.
And speaking of legitimacy and the problem in of itself, there's a lot of different people who have problems, and there are so many people out there who get on social media and they want to tell you that they have problems. And this is some people, and some people will tell you, some people will show you, and this is one of the examples of somebody showing you that they have problems. And I think it's evident when you get on social media and you see something from Habib's Twitter account telling you that a papaka gif or something is going to be for sale on Telegram. And it's not only Habib that goes through this, because he's been known to do his little crypto scams and try to catch people lacking, as they would say. But Habib was not the only one that did this. There was a lot of different people who followed suit in the papaka scheme. You had Hamzat, who was ready to give a Telegram gif, or gift, excuse me. You had Izzy, I'm pretty sure, was another one. The list goes on and on. Usman was on there, I'm pretty sure too. That one could be incorrect, but
These are all people who bought the Popkas.
no, that they had their own versions of
Oh,
the Telegram gifts. Yeah,
ah,
after Habib scams his millions of dollars, everybody was like, "Well, fuck, I got to be able to get mine too." So So days after, everybody started posting their Telegram links and selling their own stupid gifts, you know?
Ah, yeah. Well, look, I mean, at the very least, what I will say about that one is at least there was you can't really call it a scam because all they were doing was like NFTs basically. They're like selling digital goods. So you got what you paid for. Now, if you are a person in 2025 who is still buying into the concept that there is some value to these JPEGs, then oh well. I mean, that's you wanted to buy a JPEG, he was selling you a JPEG, you bought the JPEG, transaction complete. So I can't really necessarily say that this was like a traditional rug pull in the sense that that we have seen, and we have seen that from plenty of fighters as well. Coverage of those kinds of things on the channel. Also, go back to the Karate Combat video; you can see a little bit of that. But yeah, it is scummy behavior if you go into it knowing that you are selling snake oil essentially. But if you are pretty upfront with what you're offering, is it a scam in the big broader sense? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a scam, but you can just have some ethical issues with it. You could sit here and be like, why would a person who potentially could make all the money in the world getting having a career and actually doing something with his life, that's investing towards the community, when or you could be the person that everybody has the idea that evades taxes and shit like that and does all these grimy things with his fucking camp, Eagle FC or whatever the other one that he has hidden in Dagestan. Uh, it doesn't bode well when you're also putting out fucking internet images to sell for hundreds of dollars for your fans, and people would be like, well, you just sound, you're a hater, you're not the one you're just mad that you're not getting these millions of dollars selling something stupid online. It's like, if I would really hope that if I saw something, if I had a magical button that says make $1 million, but everybody is getting fooled, like I would probably be like, like maybe
Yeah.
they don't deserve to be fooled, like I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
absolutely. And that look, that is one of those things that really tests a person. And I think that it's what bothers me the most about it when it comes to Habib specifically is the fact that I've said this multiple times. Abdul Manap, his father, was a great man. I think that he was a person who did amazing things for a region of the world that needed amazing things to happen for it. It's a war torn place where life is very difficult, and there's not a lot of hope for the youth of Dagestan outside of fighting. Sometimes it would seem. So what Abdul Manap did was revolutionary to that region, and will never be forgotten by those people. For his son to go the route that he has gone, based on coming up through the system that a great man put before you, off of the back of that great man who is your father, that really irks me. That aspect of thing bothers me because, like, you can say what you want about Habib and his career and all of that. Everything that we have been hearing about Habib after in his post-fighting career has really been negative, and I think puts him in a much more poor light than him leaving the sport early or anything like that. So what you're saying about, like, yeah, you'd think that there would be like a moral conundrum if you have the ability, like, just because you can scam people doesn't mean you should scam people. You would think that a person like Habib, who theoretically had a moral compass instilled in him by a great man, did not, went against that. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, I definitely, you know, Habib is one of these guys that, again, when you look at Connor, you have a super eccentric type of personality. Then when you go to the opposite, funny in the connection with Habib and Connor, you have Habib who's somebody who pretends to be the sheltered kind of. He's low key. He's not doing any harm. He's not causing any problems. He's just Habib doing his thing, running his gym. It's like this dude, these are the people that you got to look out for. Like, because this dude is truly trying to get one over on you. It's not the first time. It's not the first time that this dude is throwing out a little fucking digital scam link, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to say. May not be a scam to you, but if you bought a digital fucking hat, mate, you got scammed, brother. Like, I don't know what to tell you. What are you using it on? How many people have Telegram right now, like, that are actually using a papaka? Like, I genuinely need to know, because it ain't enough. And if Habib made millions off it and you bought 7 papakas, dude, touch grass.
Well, that's what I want to hope, is that maybe there were some people who are just throwing some money at Habib because they're fans, and then the Popka element of it is like a secondary thing. It's like, okay, whatever. I just, I get a little image out of it, but it's really more of just a donation to Habib. Okay, if that's what you want to do, it's your money. You can spend it how you want to. But no, I do think that you're exactly right. I mean, people buy these things as an investment, and thinking that there was any investment to be had in it is a laughable concept, especially after seeing. So, bro, if you are buying anything in that realm after Hawk Tua girl's conundrum, her scandal, come on, dude. Like, you got to be a little bit more savvy than that as an adult, I would say.
Yeah, true. But you can't make everybody be an adult. Some people don't have that ability to have the brain cells to be an adult. Sometimes you can't tell everybody how to be smart with their money. Obviously, you guys see where listen, we're talking about smart with money. Guys, I don't have money to be smart with, but listen, if I had the ability to make millions of dollars and all I had to do was trick a bunch of people into buying something and supporting me in a way that I didn't feel was necessary, like I'm not giving anything back. I would not feel right if you guys supported me for doing nothing, In some way, there has to be a give and take. If you guys supported me and I was doing something, okay, I earned the support. Mate, you got with the Telegram leader and you had to make you a digital fucking item and then you promoted it on a social media account. I mean, eh, listen, people want to talk about, oh, you run a social media account for a day. Mate, Habib is not doing shit on social media. He ain't doing shit. He's just posted a fucking link saying, Telegram, add me, I'll give you a gift because father said so. And then people are like, oh shit.
Yeah,
Like,
no, yeah, it's not right. That being said, when Yama coin comes out, make sure that you get as much of it as you can, because nothing bad will ever happen.
true. Fair.
No,
Yeah.
that I guess it is a nice point to say. Like, yeah, that is a Yama promise, is that there will never be anything like that around here. So I guess that's, if you can take any silver lining away from something like that, these are the things that differentiate the people that you should be supporting and who you shouldn't. Really,
Yeah.
I mean, be aware of these kinds of things for your own benefit, because it's such a common story now of people who really thought they were doing the right thing going into this crypto coin, this NFT, all of these types of things. It's a risky endeavor to begin with, often with diminishing returns at best. So just be careful out there.
A risky endeavor with diminishing returns. We could be on the verge of seeing that at a larger scale. And I don't think that's possible, but I think there's people out there who are potentially thinking that this move could be a downward move for the UFC. As of course, the 2025 comes to an end. This is the last thing on the docket. The UFC is now moving over to Paramount Plus. The UFC era and pay-per-view model are no longer. We've talked it up before, but we can go ahead and give our final remarks. I mean, give it to rest, put it in the dirt real quick. Stay
Yes.
in.
RIP to ESPN. Yeah, this is really, we talked a lot about it, but I mean, it is a big deal in the big picture. I mean, 7.7 billion with a B dollars involved in the move over to Paramount for the UFC. This is a major windfall as far as their coffers go. I mean, a lot of money changing hands to make this a possibility and a reality now. And again, the end of the pay-per-view era really cannot be, overstated. I mean, this is a major change in the dynamic of this sport. The fact that for a lot of people, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal because everybody has their ways of, of finding the content that they want to watch. But at the same time, the access now becomes so much greater. The ability to access it, if you have a Paramount subscription, you get everything of the UFC now. It's a very big move, and it's really what I would like to see out of it. Of course, the ESPN aspect of it, I think that there were mishandlings with how that product was used on ESPN with the reach that ESPN has. There were a handful of events on ABC. There were a handful of events that were on ESPN proper, on like the over the air broadcast and stuff. ESPN Plus, of course, was the main outlet for most of the content. all of that aspect of it, like you can debate how like that all went down with the handling of it there. But what now the opportunity is for Paramount is to adjust anything that was not done well at ESPN and do it 10 times better on your own platform and see where the road takes you at that point. Because if you see a massive boom in UFC view figures, if you see a massive new wave of fans just becoming acquainted with the sport and becoming hardcore fans, steadfast, regular viewers of it, then you've proven the value already in the move. But we got a ways to go before we even see what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. I mean, I think Paramount Plus potentially could I mean, listen, $7 billion. You got to assume we're going to see some big changes coming. I mean, if they invested in that, I mean, we're going to see some things happening to the service and or the promotion. Somewhere this $7 billion is going to have to trickle into something that we are witnessing. I can't imagine it's all going to go to the fucking Disney fucking games that they have on the fucking Christmas channel that they have for the NBA and the NFL, where they have the slime touchdowns. I'm a big fan of this idea for the UFC, but I can't
You've mentioned
imagine
it
this.
many times.
It could be good, dude. It could be good. Lola and fucking Bugs in the cage, literally, just give it to me. Anyway, but it, billions of dollars, 500,000 is changing something very, very drastic about what we are seeing. So the fact that they have that many dollars to do something with, we need to be seeing something, and we need to be seeing it the moment the UFC's on there, because the way that they advertise it as well. There's a growing catalog that the Paramount is going to be getting with the UFC, I believe is how they said it. So what does that mean? They're going to be adding things. If you go back to ESPN Plus, if they had a category called the UFC the early days, you could watch the first 7 or 8 UFC pay-per-views. Where's the other 300? So maybe Paramount's actually going to do something about that.
Well, I mean that, but that also brings up the lingering. There are a lot of lingering questions right now that are going to be answered over time. But one of the other ones, and a major one that you bring up with that, is what's going to happen to Fight Pass. I mean, we've been kind of seeing some different rumblings there. Of course, they just had that big promo deal with a couple months for free, no sign up needed, kind of thing. I mean, like, why did they do that? What are they trying to accomplish with that? There's a lot of debate as to what happens to the back catalog. Does that end up going somewhere else? Do they discontinue Fight Pass? Does it stay on in some capacity? What are the broadcasts going to look like? I think you just said it best, where you were like, that amount of money that has changed hands for this product is going to fundamentally change the product one way or another. It has to. There's no way that it can't. So
Yes.
what does that look like on the other side of it? These questions will all be answered come first event of the year. So we really have only a couple of weeks to go to find out, but we're going to find out in a big major way. And really, that first event, keep your eyes on it, people, because I mean, if we see all kinds of streaming problems, we can harken back to Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson on Netflix and what a disaster that streaming experience was. Is it going to be anything like that? Are they going to have the infrastructure to handle it? I mean, like, all of these things have major implications for the product in general going forward. What's it all going to look like? We have a couple weeks till we find out.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, I'm very excited for it. New territory, obviously going to bring new adventures, new issues, of course. But I think the only thing that I'm worried about specifically is the day that the fights come. I don't want to be scrambling to have to upgrade my package of, but because what they said is to watch the UFC is it's going to be the standard premium $60 for annual. We got that price 50% off at Black Friday, so presumably I have 1 year of the UFC, well, 9 months of the UFC. So I would tend to believe that I should not have to do any scrambling the day of to upgrade my pass and figure out how to get the extra access to the fights. I should just be able to get on Paramount. I should be able to type in the UFC, and it should show me the poster, and it should say watch now. I don't ask for much. I ask for those simple things. And I think you could nail it, Paramount Plus. With $8 billion, it genuinely should not be that hard to add 2 buttons and a watch now. Like,
Yeah, really, I mean, this is a broader point for all of MMA in general. One of the biggest barriers to entry for this sport is just fucking getting to it. I mean, we were just talking before the stream started, you and I, Chase, about the Ryzen card that's coming up that I'm planning on doing the watch along for New Year's. It's gonna be on the 30th, but New Year's for Japan. I had to go out of my way to make sure that I had the link in place so that I knew exactly how to get it, because getting to these things and finding out where the organization does their stream and what time it's going to start and all, there are so many things as far as outside of the UFC goes that make it difficult to follow along with this sport. UFC and Paramount have an opportunity to do exactly what you said. Log on, click button, watch sport. That's what we want. Make it as simple as possible. If there are a bunch of bells and whistles and a whole bunch of nonsense that come attached to it, you're complicating something that does not need to be complicated.
Yeah, 100%. So Paramount, if you're listening, you have a bunch of people in your marketing department and or the people who actually change shit about marketing actually isn't a department that matters here, but the people that are listening, they get paid a lot of money and we're giving them ideas. We're doing your job for you right now. You could just tune in, listen for 5 minutes, and your month's work that you turn into your boss is just everything that I've said in the last 5 minutes. That could be everything that you were contributing to the change of Paramount that is going to be starting on January 24th or whatever it is for the UFC. You could have a free ride to a promotion if you just listen to the people who actually watch the fucking sport. And when I talked about with Netflix and the boxing event, I got on there, I typed in Jake Paul, I saw the event, I clicked watch, I couldn't even do it. So if you just hear me out, make it possible for me to get on there and watch the fights, you're already winning. I don't that's
Yeah.
about it.
No, and look, I mean, TJF coming and just let them know. I mean,
Thank
see,
you.
this is absolutely the truth. And also, from what I understand, and I don't know how applicable this is to this exact conversation, but I have heard in the film world, at the very least, that they listen to these conversations. The people involved in the production side of things, like the actual people making the decisions, there are ears on conversations like these. So by extension, support channels like Yama and Chase's channel. I mean, like, support what we're, if you agree with what we're saying, then support what we're doing here, because amplifying what we're saying will eventually trickle up to the top. I mean, like, they like, our voices are important to their product. We,
Mhm.
like, this is a symbiotic relationship over here. It's not just give from them and we take. They have to, there has to be a two-way dialogue, and what the conversations that we're having are what inform the elements that go into the broader discussion.
Yeah, Paramount. I don't know if you're listening, but if you ever do get around to hearing this, I'll watch more ads if I can actually watch the event on your fucking service. I mean, you plug me with plenty of ads at 30 seconds, dude. I don't care. I'll watch the event with those ads in place.
There you
So,
go. I mean, it couldn't be hitting the better points if you tried. So, I mean, really, it all comes down to that. And we will see. I mean, look, we're speculating right now about it just because of how. Think about that aspect of it real quick. It's like we're speculating about this because of how many times we have been let down. Just don't let us down. That's all you got to do. We're laying out very clear and simple points to make this an enjoyable experience from a fan's perspective. Do those things, get your ad revenue out of it, get your continued subscriptions out of it. We all win.
yes.
Easy equation.
Yep, absolutely. And listen, and like I said, commercials. Play your dude wipes, play your fucking pizza rolls, Mountain Dew, Jack Links, whatever you want to show me. I don't care as long as I can get on there, type in Joshua Van, and I see the 8 fights that he's had in the promotion. I don't want to see the last 3 like ESPN Plus would have. I want every single fight from the fighter that I type in. If I get on UFC and I type in Maxim, the dude who fucking fought Tagir Ulanbekov like half a year ago, I need to see all of his fights in the promotion. There's no reason that the UFC signs a 7 point whatever billion-dollar deal for a rolling category or a rolling whatever the fuck I'm thinking of. The I should be able to type in any fucking fighter and see all of their fucking fights ever in the promotion. Like it's why is this a tough ask? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there might be additional rights issues going like for back catalog stuff, perhaps, but I mean, that certainly would be a note that I think would make sense too, at least for anything that's on the Paramount platform. Absolutely. I think the way you're laying out for that should definitely be that case. So, really it comes down to, I guess, once they actually are underway, if that's going to be a possibility. But at the very, very bare minimum, give the people an easy access point and a good quality streaming experience. And you all, not only will you have made us happy in that by itself, but you also will be getting one up on the experience that we had on ESPN Plus.
Yeah.
Everybody hated that. I mean, really, this is like so many people. I mean, I cannot tell you how many people I saw posting the images of them hitting the cancel button, with little smiley face emojis. I mean, everybody was so ready. Like I had gone from an annual subscription to a monthly subscription to cover the gap time on ESPN Plus, and the second that the Manel Kopp and Brandon Royval card ended, I canceled. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I was waiting for that exact moment. So it's like, you have an opportunity to not only give us what we want, get yourself what you want out of it, but also get one up on your competition.
Yeah, 100%. But oh, I love when they say I'm spot on. Let me read this one out loud real quick. But Chase is spot on with ESPN was so cheeks at old fights that YouTube cleared full fights. Dude, I get on YouTube, I see a page from UFC India, and they just post a whole fight of Carlos Prates and Leon Edwards. But I get on ESPN Plus, and I have to wait 4 weeks because it's a fucking pay per view. Like it, it, I don't know. I don't know. It just makes my head fucking hurt. Like,
Yeah, well, again, there's a lot of issues when it comes to rights and stuff like that, and a lot of money to be made with the additional stuff with the back catalogs and whatnot. So there might be more at play than what we're giving credit for with that. But either way, I figure it out. It's
if
your
there
stuff. It's your property. Figure it out.
That's what I'm thinking. It's like if there is more at play, it's like okay, they don't have the rights for something. It's like, bro, you own the UFC. What are you talking about? Like if you don't own older fights, how have you mismanaged them? Like what did you do to not have the rights to be able to show
Well,
them on
no, they
streaming
do, but that's the
service?
whole thing is that like that's what the Fight Pass element of all of this is because you can go on Fight Pass and do all of what you're talking about right now.
You say that, but I go watch UFC 15. I don't think that's possible. They
Oh, I
don't
think
let
it
you.
is. Yeah, no, I think you can watch every single UFC event on Fight Pass. Is that not the case?
That's what they say. They say that on ESPN Plus too, but you go there and you can't find all of them. They don't show them all.
Right, but
So
ESPN Plus and Fight Pass are different, not the same thing though.
go on there and I would love to see how many of these older cards that you can find because
All
I
right,
I
I will
would
check it
love
out.
yeah, I don't think it's as lucrative as you're making it seem. But if it is and they're combining it all to go to Paramount Plus, I'll believe you. But from my experience, I bought ESPN Plus because it's the home of the UFC fucking network. And you're gonna tell me I can't fucking watch all of the UFC fights. Like that's it just doesn't even add up to me. Um, yeah, but whatever. Fight Pass, cool. I mean, I'm not buying it because I have Paramount Plus now. So if they don't want me to watch old fights, I'm gonna continue to talk about how they don't have old fights on their streaming services. Like, I mean, what? Listen up, people out there. Like Jesus.
Yeah, put it all in one place, make it easily accessible. That is what Chase is asking for.
Yeah, seriously.
All right. Well, fair enough. I mean, well, again, we've got only a couple of weeks till we find out. Really closer than ever now. Really. I mean, we've got what's the date of the first event? Do we know? Is it the
24th, I think.
24th? Oh wow, I thought it was the 17th. Okay, yeah, 24th. I guess you are right. That is 6 weeks. Jesus,
I
we do
mean,
have a little bit of
no,
time
it's
to go.
4 weeks from now.
Right.
So maybe 17th.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm.
But either way, we will be here for it, obviously, and yeah, I mean, that all will be revealed. So, get yourself your excuse me, your ESPN. What Jesus Christ, two times. Get yourself your Paramount Plus subscription, and you can watch along with all of the developments as we report them.
God, I love when Chase hits us with that's what they want you to think. Dude, they like they want you to think that it's okay. It's not, guys. We should be able to get one streaming service that has the fight promotion that we want to watch and it has all of the fights that have ever been in that fight promotion on that streaming service. Why am I saying things that like it doesn't sound crazy? Like this sounds the norm. Like if I wanted to watch something, I go to the place that has it. It's not I go to the place that has it and they say, "Oh, well, there's actually more over there." There's
I
actually a
mean, yeah,
measurement
but
over
you
there.
you say that, except now if you I mean, we're probably a little more spoiled than you think in MMA, because if you're talking about that, I know people who watch football. It's on 17 different streaming services. You have to go to freaking Amazon for Thursday. You got to go to ESPN for Saturday. You got to go over here for Monday night. I mean, like, so yeah, I mean, we probably have it a little bit better than other sports may have it. I do understand what you're saying, though. It is nice to have everything in one place, which really could have been what Fight Pass was. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's more money to be made in the way that they're doing it with Paramount for sure. But at the same time, it would have been a great thing. Like, it really, I think we would have, like, as fans, benefited a lot from having all of the UFC content on Fight Pass and all of the back catalog on Fight Pass. Cut out all the other middlemen, just have your own thing.
Mhm.
It could have been
True.
nice, but not what we're getting.
No, I agree. It's always something. It's always a workaround. Dana. This goes back to him being, on the board of Meta. Man, he's a political figure now, guys. Anything that he does is not in service of the common man. He's here to make his conglomerate bigger, and we are just pawns in this game. So I just want you guys to understand that you are supporting the UFC for your entertainment value. Don't expect them to give you anything more than people who potentially could put on banger fights. Support the people who put on those banger fights. Don't support the actual fucking billionaires who are fucking doing this for no love in the game.
Yeah, and to that same point, I mean, I'm trying very regularly now to mix in some watch-alongs of smaller promotions, and trying to give a little bit of shine to them, in addition to just having fun doing the watch-alongs with them. So if you see that I've got a watch-along going, you can try to seek it out. I'm often specifically trying to find promotions that air their fights for free on YouTube to do the watch-alongs for. So if you see one of those, the link will be in the description of the stream. You can support the independent promotions that way, and get some really some decent entertainment value out of them. Exactly what you're saying. I mean, the last time that we did that with the Acesso MMA down there in Brazil, aside from the fact that they didn't have replays, that was a very good card. So there's plenty of value in the MMA world beyond the UFC. You just got to be willing to seek it out.
Yeah, 100%. And everybody out there, I do think you should be trying to catch up with those live streams that Thinker does have sporadically, because they are very, very fun. The one that he had last night, I'm telling you one more time, if you are interested in anything that Bryce Mitchell has to say, there is a stream out there right now that Thinker did last night, and it is well worth listening to what Bryce Mitchell has to say about his Corollas, his Nissans, and anything else like that. That was a big portion of what the show was going towards. And just check out the episode.
I
Thinker is
appreciate
awesome.
it. Thank you, man. Yes, no, it was a lot of fun. More Bryce content coming in the future, I am sure. Yeah, nope. To that same point, Chase, as we end 2025, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for being here and, hanging out and on all these streams with me, and, being my constant companion on last week's fights and everything. We've been growing this thing out together, and it's really coming into its own. And you're a great reason for that. So I really appreciate everything that you do for all of the stuff that we do together.
Hell yeah. No, it's good, man. You made the show. Like you said, listen, they've said it before. I think there's a movie out there. I think it's called Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Thinker built this show, guys. I only came here, I only
Ah,
showed up.
well, we love it, man. It's been a great journey so far, and a lot more to come. To that same point, as I had said, Karate Combat video is out now. If you want to check that out, all through MMA Winter, there's going to be plenty going on. And Chase and I have been teasing it. We are going to get MMA on film is coming back, people. This is going to happen. So, let's make sure that you are, just keeping up with everything that we're doing now. Again, bigger and better coming in 2026. So, yeah, I mean, I guess if you're saying that was the last thing on the docket, again, thank you guys. I mean, really, we say it every stream, but I cannot stress it enough that none of this is possible without your support. And I firmly do believe, and I say it with my full chest, that we have the best community of MMA fans on YouTube. I stand by that 100%. No matter how big or small it may be, it is the best community out there. So you guys make that possible. So thank you for all the support throughout everything that we've been doing.
No, absolutely. Yeah, the chat, you guys go crazy. I appreciate you guys for showing up because, I mean, I tell Thinker this all the time. We could sit here and talk. We're going to talk whether it's going good or it's going bad, but you guys make it a lot easier because it goes good a lot of times that we have these streams. And you guys are just, you're engaging. You don't seem to mind when we ignore you on occasion because we're in just a whole big rant that we can't stop to seem to talk about, whatever the case may be. You guys are just always there, and we appreciate you guys a lot. So keep it up.
Absolutely. And yeah, also, I did want, TJF coming in and, as a longtime supporter, he's got something that he wants to plug. So, you know what? We are at the very
All
end of
right.
this stream. TJF, you go ahead and drop your plug there, brother. And, let people go and view what you got to promote. Cause I know that he has something that he's been working on for a little while. So go ahead and get that out there, sir. Yep. No. No,
The
dude, do
polo
it.
tee.
Polo T, yes. Polo T is an up and coming rapper, people, and this dude has been putting that work in the studio. So go ahead and get it. I mean, I'm waiting. I'm saying when I say drop it, I mean drop the link, brother.
Yeah, drop that shit right now. We're ready to listen to it, man. I'm
Yeah,
about
dude,
to.
absolutely. I mean, we're coming up to the end. We were wrapping up, but you're keeping us in suspense now.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
Either I guess while we are waiting, I was curious, Chase. What are your New Year's plans?
New Year's plans now that there's Ryzen going on, maybe that, but I probably am gonna work.
Well, fair enough. I guess I had kind of talked about it a little bit. If Chase is not going to be around for it, that's unfortunate. But yeah, well, it's actually the day before New Year's for this the Ryzen card for us.
That would be
So
that might actually work out perfect. Oh wow.
yeah. So yeah, December 30th, I believe at 11 p.m. So it is a late start, but we are certainly accustomed to late starts around here. So yeah, I'm planning on doing the watch along for the Ryzen New Year's card. That's going to be a great time from what I understand. I've been wanting to do Ryzen on the channel for so long, so this is really this is a big thing for me. Like I said, Ryzen and One Championship are two spots that I mean we've done a little one championship in the past, but I want to do more of that. And Ryzen has just been one that's just been inaccessible for a while for me. So like I'm really looking forward to the Ryzen card. And yeah, I mean that'll be great. So just keep an eye out for that as well. And MMA on film coming back
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I think tomorrow actually, if we're gonna set it in stone, tomorrow since there's no UFC, a movie could be watched. I think that is valid. I think we can go ahead and do that. And yeah, we have the movie that we are gonna watch unless we want to flip the script and throw something else out there real quick. So make sure if you guys have a MMA movie that you are wanting us to watch, or a TV show or a documentary and or a docu-series or a mockumentary, I don't know, any other type of genres that you can have for a mixed martial arts and or martial arts centric TV show, movie, documentary, whatever. Make sure to drop those for us because we do have an ongoing list that we are eventually going to get to all of. We just need to make sure we have the best calculated responses from the community to make sure that we know what we're watching.
True. All right. Well, so TJF has posted his
Let's
link
do
to
it.
his song on Discord. Do you have Discord going right now, Chase?
I do have Discord going right now.
I guess if you want to bring this up, we can end the stream with a little bit of a musical performance here.
Oh wow. I would like to apologize, TJF. I did not know this was your Discord account. I might have you blocked.
Uh-oh.
No, but I hear it. Hold on. I'm about to play it.
I don't know if we're going to be able to hear it yet.
I'm gonna share.
Yeah. Let me bring up whatever you share here. Yeah, let me add that. Boom. Here we go.
You guys ready? Let me turn it up a little bit. 3 minutes. I mean, we ready?
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah, I appreciate you. This is slapping so far.
Cash, yeah, you know we getting them racks. Every time she see me, yeah, she call me dad. Facts, yeah, she got my back. Only speaking English, you are all cap. First of all, I ain't do no sense taking her to Japan. I don't wanna fight no more, but she's still throwing hands. I ain't Casper, but I'm still a fucking ghost. I ain't busy, but I'll still leave a hoe. There's a lot on my mind that I wanna say. Leave me alone if you just wanna play games. I don't wanna play that shit, but she making arrangements. I'm feeling like the Fresh Prince, cause she just wants my presence. Cash, yeah, you know we getting them racks. Every time she see me, yeah, she call me dad. Facts, yeah, she got my back. Only speaking English, you are all cap. Drunker than a skunk, yeah, I'm spinning. Shot like a beetle, yeah, I'm blending and landing. Living cash on these cars, all these sequels like Pixar. Yeah, you won't make it far. I'm a pirate, bitch. R, are you going with me?
Bro.
You don't see the scars running from my hands, my knees. Praying every night, I just wanna be seen. You don't know what that means. Woke up today and greed.
You ain't know what that means. I said what I want, I speak my mind. Got too many hoes, go for my line. Like 8 of you, but 1 at a time. Like I found the one, yeah, she found done. Free love is a crime, I'm set this alive. I'm putting the pieces together, I see she's seeing red. She smell the green. Talk to myself, I think I'm scared to. I'm the rich in your city, how would your gifts go? Get if you love me, some gas a giggle. Do what I say, bitch, cause I said so. Cause I said so. Call me Stallone, I'm going Rambo. Shooting my gun like I'm playing Rainbow. Call me the kid, cause I go insane.
Cash, yeah, you know we getting them racks. Every time she see me, yeah, she call me dad. Facts, yeah, she got my back. Only speaking English, you are all cap. Hold up, where did you go? I didn't really wanna drop no more. Been distracted by all these hoes. They keep on knocking at the door. All of these days keep on passing by. Polo, you never lie. I think they got me hypnotized. Running out of time, really synchronized. Yeah, I don't swim, that's why I drown in all these little lies. Money made me think I'm doing the best. Yama told me make that bread. Told my girl I'll see you in a sec. Cash, yeah, you know we get them racks.
Yo.
Every time she see me, yeah, she call me dad. Facts, yeah, she got my back. Only speaking English, you are all cap.
Well, I mean, come on. You get a Yama ref in
He
there. Obviously,
did
10
drop
out of
the
10.
Yama bar. Yes, he did drop
Bro.
the Yama bar.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate it, man. Yeah. What do you think, Chase? Give some opinions, some thoughts, some feedback on this.
No, that was pretty funny. That was pretty good. We definitely we might have the music channel coming out soon if we're gonna have everybody dropping us some hits to listen to. Yeah, that was no, what's really funny, TJF, you're not blocked, but I don't know. I thought you were somebody else, I think, but I definitely removed you at one point. I invited you back though, so I appreciate if you join. But either way, we'd love to listen to the music, man. Please get some more out because we will listen to these every Friday.
Oh, dude, please. Yes. No, I love it. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there's probably some room for, some, maybe a little bit, with the bars, I would say. But like you have the basics of the flow down. I think that, staying to the beat and stuff like that, you're with that element of it. So, probably, just I guess varying some of the content a little bit of like what you're actually saying could be a little bit helpful. But like, I think really honestly, your boy, I think that the dude who was on the track with you like is kind of a decent model of like what you can like elevate yourself towards a little bit more. Cause like I think he like kind of like almost sounded like a little more of like an evolved version of what you were doing. So like kind of going in that direction, I think would make sense for you. But there's definitely some good formative elements as far as like what you're trying to accomplish. Plus, knowing who you're a fan of, like the type of music that you like, I can see like the influence in there. So I think you're accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish with a lot of this. So stay at it, man. I mean, keep doing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Making music, man. If you're doing it, keep it up, man. Jesus, you're only gonna get better with it, and you're only gonna get more. It's all about what's the word am I looking for?
Consistency.
Well, consistency, true, but it's art, so it's all about interpretation, so
Oh, sure. Yeah. Subjective.
yes, so it's not necessarily it's not necessarily going to be for everybody at all the time, but it does take a certain ear to come around to it at a certain time in life, you know. So it's always just, it's all about who you know, and it's all about what the message you're trying to push. So if you're out here pushing this, fuck it.
Hell yeah, dude. No, and obviously dropping the Yama reference is always going to be a 10 out of 10 thing to do. So appreciate that, man. Yeah, wow. Immortalized. Yama immortalized in music form now. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yama did get a bar. I'm actually pretty jealous. I would love to be in the next one, TJF. So.
Indeed. Well, so all right, with that as what it is, you know, I guess that does bring us to the end of the stream here, guys. Appreciate you all for being here for the year-end wrap-up. Hopefully the this little walk down memory lane as far as 2025 goes was enjoyable for you. Of course, as we've said, plenty more coming in the new year, so stick around for all of that on the other side of it. And you know, I mean, obviously we'll be around a little bit before the new year comes, but if you are not around, I hope you have a fantastic new year, and keep doing what you're doing, which is being awesome, and we will see you on the other side of it. So until then, everybody, have a great rest of your night, a great rest of your weekend, and as always, fight on.
Game.